Yeah, we can try. It's,
All right.
What's the date?
The meeting is the 23rd of
23rd.
May. So if it looks like you'll be able to get something in a week from today, that's great. If it looks like that's not going to happen, reach out to me and
Okay.
we'll figure it out.
okay. Yeah, hopefully we'll know
Right.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Then I'll give the information to the draft and figure it out.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, so is it your wish that we continue the public hearing to
Yes.
May 21st?
Yes.
23rd.
23rd, I'm
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue the public hearing at the applicant's request to our May 23rd, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Hopefully, we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Mr. Chairman, A is here.
Okay, we'll go back to 2A, Aaron Popolo, 10 Karen Road, RDA, deck, shed, paving, and landscaping. And if you would sign in, or actually print in, and identify yourselves for our note taker.
My name is Aaron Popolo.
Taylor Popolo? I have the waiver and the descriptions for you,
Okay.
too. It was just one copy, right?
Yeah.
That you wanted? Okay.
So I will just say that what I have here is, there's a request to waive the 25-foot no disturb zone. And so there's the other issues would be the driveway paving. Existing driveway is 15 feet wide by 23 feet long. Proposed driveway to extend to 42 feet wide, 36 feet long. Fence, a vinyl fence around the perimeter of the backyard within the property line. And ground level deck in the backyard, 22 inches above ground, not connected to the house, 16 wide by 16 long. Frame is partially constructed, need to add decking to finish. Deck near driveway above the ground, connected to side door stairs, 42 feet wide by 20 feet long. Stairs on backside to enter backyard play area. And that's not connected to the house?
That one will be,
That
but we
one
haven't
would
started
be.
that. That won't be for a little bit.
That's a, so that,
The small one's not
I don't think
connected.
we're going to want to add that to this proposal, because that's going to need, you're going to need a permit
Oh,
from
yeah.
the
Oh,
building
Yeah, we
commission.
know
That's-
that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It just, we've realized that, like, the bugs are just terrible in the backyard, so I figure it'd be easier just to be able to be a little bit higher off the ground from the wetland area.
So I think, if I'm understanding it right, I think they could add this to the proposal. The commission could just decide from the Conservation Commission standpoint, then they would
Okay.
separately
Yeah, well,
need to get a
yeah.
building permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question
You
was
could
gonna
still
be,
cover it tonight.
Okay.
if we did go back, let's just say in a year, because you said this is good for 3 years through the
Correct.
Conservation
Yes.
Commission. If I was to go through in a year with the building department for the permits, they would just come and check with you guys and
Yep.
would be okay?
Yes.
Okay. Would we have to come back again for another meeting, or would that just be?
No, not if it's approved tonight. If you
already-
don't, if
okay.
you don't make any changes
Yeah.
to what you're proposing
Yeah.
from what you've proposed now,
Awesome.
then no, you would not need to come back.
Yeah.
Because it's
Perfect.
basically the same size, it's just above instead of ground level.
Yeah, yeah.
So with that, I would move that we allow a waiver of the 25-foot notes disturbed for the proposed work.
Second.
Second by Steve, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
And then-
Discussion on the project.
I'm seeing what I've seen this evening, I'm all
Any-
set.
Any
I'm
comments or
fine, no.
questions over here?
I'm good.
I'm good with what we've got.
Again, this is a public hearing. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on the matter, you step forward. Seeing none, I bring it back to the commission, one last opportunity.
Just one final comment. This very thorough work. I really appreciate it. You did a good job on it. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you, guys.
And hearing none other, is it your wish that we close the public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Mr.
that's
Chairman,
what
I move
said.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Close the public hearing?
Second.
Second by John, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you
Chairman,
very
I
much,
would,
guys.
I would move that we issue a -3 determination of applicability for the project.
Second the motion.
Second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
So a negative determination is good for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Negative is positive.
Negative,
Negative
okay.
is positive.
I'm like,
It's like magnets.
I don't know, negative doesn't sound good, so.
It's like a medical result. Negative is what you
Yes,
want.
Okay.
negative's a good thing. Well, good. All right, you guys. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
one.
Next on the agenda is Connoisseur's Product Corporation, locus is 17 Presidential Way, notice of intent, DP number 348-865, stormwater improvements. If there's someone here to speak, if you would sign in by printing in and identify yourself to our note taker, please.
Sure. My name is Matthew Connors. I'm a civil engineer with Hancock Associates. So you guys have the packet that we submitted a couple weeks ago. I have a presentation if you guys want to see it. We can kind of run through what we're looking to do out there. It's basically expansion of an existing use. And most of the work that we're doing is just augmentation of what's already out there, so.
How's everybody feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay. One of the things I thought about, you know, prior to even starting this was that typically for commercial projects, we require peer review. So I'm thinking that's probably going to be something that we're going to need to have.
Okay. It's, I mean, I can tell you right now, the wetland line is based upon topography. The site is significantly higher than the wetlands out there. And the detention basin that we are adjusting to make expansion for the current use is already there. We're kind of adding to it. The majority of actually all of the paving and all of the disturbances behind the building, which is outside of the wetland buffer, so.
Right, but
And that's your purview, so.
yeah, no, I get that, the fact that the stormwater basin, and actually I saw it, I'm sure, is it a detention basin or is it
It's infiltration.
It's been shown as infiltration and detention on the plans.
Correct.
Which is it?
It's an infiltration base, so there's a bottom section that is below the outlet. That portion is infiltrated back into the system. And then there is an outlet control structure where stormwater does get discharged into the wetland. And this is the current operation. There's really no change with what's going on. We've added a little bit of of volume for infiltration because of the additional pavement from the building and the parking areas. And there's been some adjustment to the outlet control structure because of that added impervious.
Right. So that would be my concern, is I'm not an engineer, and I want to know whether or not that basin is sized properly. I know that you're saying it is. So I don't know whether it is sized properly for what's out there now. This was done, how old is the?
This was actually done prior to the current regulations.
Right.
We did update it because of that, to meet the current regulations. I can tell you that this was approved by by City Council earlier in this week. It was reviewed by the town engineer for compliance with engineering compliance. It's gone before the fire chief, so he's on board with it. So you guys are the last piece of the puzzle.
Yep, I really get that. I'm not, I mean, if you can get us, maybe you can get us some sort of certification by the, whichever engineer looked at the stormwater?
I can ask the city engineer if he would provide that to you, sure.
Okay. Absent of receiving that, if we wait for, our next meeting to get that and we don't, I still think that, I mean, if the engineers are okay with it, I'd be okay with it, but if they haven't looked at it, I think we're gonna look for peer review, and that's gonna put you back, so.
Sure.
As chairman, I would strongly recommend to the commission that we do peer review. If we can get a certification, then that might, change some minds. But I think that would be the way to go.
So what I'll tell you I'll do is I'll talk to the city engineer, see if he can send you an email based upon what we've already gone through. I can, and then I guess basically your agent and I can communicate on what the outcome of that is, and then it's if you want to go forward with a peer review in the meantime,
Okay.
we can see which comes out first.
So do you think that it makes sense to start the process? Just to not lose time, just in case,
To,
Parallel.
well, if I,
put a request.
right, so I could send out, request for a proposal, but the actual review would not take place until funds are in place.
Oh, totally. But at least we're starting today, so that at the next meeting, when they say, oh, we need a peer review, we're just starting it.
So
I'm just trying to be
if the applicant
proactive.
would like, I can send out a request for proposal, and then,
Why don't you do that? I'll confirm with the applicant.
Okay.
And then I'll email you, but why don't you at least take the steps so that we don't lose any time?
okay, and just for me, this is directed to the commission. Are you looking for a peer review just for the stormwater review?
Yes.
Or-
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
solely stormwater in relation to the Wetlands Protection Act and pertinent regulations? Okay, got it. Thank you. I don't know if the commission wants.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we seek peer review for this project. Usually it's 3 people that we seek.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we will have peer review. Do you want to do your presentation, or you want to wait until we get peer review and then do everything all at once?
It's whatever the board wants.
How does everybody,
Do we want to see if there's many people for,
yeah, I will. Does anybody have any other issues, having looked at the project? So the applicant can hear other concerns and maybe address those as well.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. I was looking at the plans, and I didn't see that the buffer zones were on the plans, and that just might be an oversight on my part, but if you could take a look at that and,
They're on the plans.
On the
I'll point them out to you if you want, but yeah, do you have a,
Okay.
it's, the majority of, like I said, the majority of the work is behind the building, which is outside of the area. The only area that's within the buffer zone that we're actually doing is a little bit of pipe and modification of the basin to accommodate stormwater.
okay. Thank you.
So I had a couple of questions for you, just on the notice of intent itself. The owner, it says the owner's name is Douglas Dorman,
Correct.
but is it Dorman or Dorfman?
It should be Storfman.
Okay.
Is it misspelled?
Well, just on the application,
Okay.
it was signed, it says the applicant is Douglas Dorman, and then his email is D. Dorfman.
Yeah,
So-
it's Doug Dorfman.
Okay,
I'll correct that and resubmit it to the book.
okay. As far as the wetland out there, are the flags in place now?
Yep.
Okay, so we'd like to do a site visit, I believe. At some point, we'll schedule one.
Sure. I presume it's a Saturday morning. The facility's closed at that point, so pretty much you have run of the area. If you want to choose a time, I can coordinate that with the owner, so security doesn't grab you guys.
Yeah, all right. So we're not able to, because we should be able to go over there and
Okay.
review this, and we just tell security that we're.
If Teresa wants to give me an email, I'll just let the owner know so that, there's going to be a group of people stopping in to say hi.
Right. Yeah. So maybe we can either schedule now or wait till.
Could I ask you, do you prefer a Saturday, or?
I
would
personally-
Where it's now daylight savings, would it be something we could do on a weeknight?
Sure.
Like in the afternoon?
I personally don't care.
Okay.
The majority of
We don't
board,
either,
the
right.
majority of commissions like to do it Saturday morning.
Yeah.
But if you guys want to do it in the evening or whatever,
Just I wanted to
Nope.
explore our options, so. Okay, thank you.
if I'm not at a board meeting in the evening, I'm,
Yeah,
so.
so,
Maybe we can schedule all of our site visits at the end of the evening.
at
and
the
then
end, yeah.
Teresa can
Yeah, that sounds good.
reach out to.
Does
Just
that
send me an
work?
email.
Does that work? Okay.
That's fine.
And if you could, if it's possible, to get a copy of the maintenance logs for the detention basin now and the sediment forebay and the catch basins out there?
I will get you whatever information that we have. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have just two things. It may be on the plan, and maybe I didn't see it, but do you have snow storage areas designated on the plan?
No, I don't believe we do.
Would you be able to add that?
I can add them for you, absolutely.
And also, I did see for the local fee, you gave how it's calculated, but not the actual calculation. I can do it backwards, but if you could provide
I
that.
will get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the
No,
board?
thanks.
Good for now.
Oh, I guess I do have one other one, is in terms of the stormwater management operation maintenance plan, is there anything about de-icing and information about that in there? And if there isn't, if that could be added, that would be good.
I would have to check. I don't recall specifically, but if it's not, we can certainly add that to.
Thank you.
Anything else from the commission? Again, this is a public hearing. If there's anybody here to speak on the matter, seeing none, bring it back to the commission. One last opportunity for a question or comment. Hearing none, is it your wish that we continue the public hearing?
Sure.
Make a motion to continue the public hearing for Connoisseurs Product Corporation for 17 Presidential Way for an NOI
Do you want to,
to
2
the
weeks?
next meeting, or do we want to go 2 meetings out?
next meeting?
Next meeting is 2 weeks, correct?
Yep.
Yes, does that give you enough time to get,
I should be able to, I can send in an RFP. I probably would have an answer back by the next meeting. So you can reach out to the city engineer in the meantime and
okay,
see where we're at the next
Okay.
meeting. That makes sense. That does make sense.
okay, sounds good, yep.
Okay, so May 23rd meeting at 6:30.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next three public hearings, City of Woburn, I'm sure that's why most of you people are here. If you have questions, you will have your opportunity. We've got quite a few people in the audience. If you hear the question that you also had, look, we don't want to have repeats. And if you could probably limit yourself to 3 to 5 minutes, we will be able to get through this without being here until midnight. Okay, so next on the agenda is the City of Woburn. Locus is the Middlesex Canal Corridor. Notice of intent, DP number 348-864, and it's for a multimodal path. If there's someone here to speak on the matter,
Just about just the girl.
do you need the screen?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, probably.
Technology, I don't know if you'll need. Here's the remote.
Thank you.
Is there a place to plug it
Is there
into?
a cord?
And did you guys
It's
look at
underneath.
it?
Yes.
There should be.
Did they give you their names?
No, not yet.
No taking your names?
Yep. Josh Conradi with VHB.
And Bridget Hilgendorf with VHB. Here, I have this. Awesome. Here, do you want this?
Sure. All right. So my name's Josh Conradi. I'm here with VHB, who's hired by the City of Woburn as a consultant for this job. So this is for a multimodal path to be installed along the old Middlesex Canal, along the old railroad bed, so next to the Middlesex Canal, really. So this project's proposed in 2 sections right now. As you can see on the map, I know it's a little small, but the first section, which actually on the plans you guys received, is called Section 2. Section 1's not included in this project. It's a little bit south to the rest of this. Section 2 runs from Harrison up to Middlesex Canal Park Drive, which is just south of 95. And then Section 3, which is the top section, runs from Main Street or Alfred Street up to School Street / Merrimack Street intersection. So one thing I will say is I know we did receive a letter from DEP yesterday asking for additional information on the stormwater. We are working through additional alternatives, and we're not going to be seeking to close this tonight, acknowledging that, and know that we have to present more information based on the stormwater for this job. It's a little bit tricky of a stormwater situation. We're up on embankment for much of this corridor, which doesn't allow us a lot of opportunity to install stormwater measures for this job. We're seeking opportunities to put in drainage swales and any sort of treatment possible. Specifically in Section 3, there's a little area that we're trying to install those in. And in Section 2, we're looking for areas to also install some swales along the corridor. So I just wanted to get that up front before we dive into more of this detail. So it's about 1.9 miles total of path split up between the 2 sections. The actual paved portion of the path is a 10-foot wide section. On the outside of that, we'll have 2-foot grass shoulders consistently throughout. Apologies. 2-foot grass shoulders consistently throughout the pathway. And then outside of that, it will just be re-landscaping with native shrubs and native seed mixes for any disturbances caused by the project. There'll also be wood fence, wood railing installed along the path in some locations as safety features for path users. And there is a good amount of grading that needs to happen, specifically around Kilby Street, to bring the path up to the road of the grade of the roadway. In other locations, there's also a little bit of grading just to make the path ADA compliant. And then the other thing I'd just like to bring up, because this project is not going to accommodate any vehicular traffic, it is a limited project, we believe. And for the stormwater that we're working on, it is going to be seeking to provide the maximum extent practicable treatment. And I'm going to let Bridget take over to go through some of the environmental portion.
Thank you. So yeah, again, Bridget Hilgendorf from VHB. In terms of the resource areas that we have here, the project is located in proximity to bank, BVW, and land under water bodies and waterways, as well as within the 200-foot riverfront area to 2 perennial streams, one being the Cummings Brook, which is located north of Kilby Street, and another is an unnamed perennial stream, which is located south of that Middlesex Canal Park access road. It is also located within the 150-foot buffer, 100-foot buffer, and 25-foot no disturb to BVW, as well as the bank of these streams and the Middlesex Canal. And the canal runs from Merrimack Street up to Alfred Street, and then again from where the start of the Cummings Brook is up to the Middlesex Canal Park access throughout the project. And so looking at the riverfront and these buffer zones and their current conditions, they are vegetated, although disturbed given the regular pedestrian use through this area. It is wooded along the edges, but again, it is located in pretty close proximity to some residential and a few commercial properties on either side of this corridor. And so here, this is a snapshot of the plans, and it's looking at where the Cummings Brook comes in from the west into the Middlesex Canal. So you can see the bank of the brook and the canal shown in the light blue line here. And so you can also see the 200-foot riverfront area shown in this orange dashed line, and the inner 100-foot riverfront area in the second orange dashed line. And so you can see it kind of extends radially from the point where the canal becomes the perennial stream as it continues off of the project limits. And the extent of the canal versus the stream was determined based on field observations as well as using resources online like aerials and USGS mapping. And so beyond that, we do also have the 150-foot buffer to bank shown in dark blue, the 100-foot buffer zone to bank shown in this green, and then the 25-foot no disturb zone to bank shown in the red dashed line.
Can I just stop here for a second?
Sure.
So we'd like to see plans in jurisdictional areas similar to this with the color codings. It is actually in our regulations that that we receive plans with, so we can, it's much easier to identify the, buffer zones and the resource areas.
Yeah.
So if you could do that, and you can do it on like an 11 by 17 sheet.
Yep,
Okay?
no problem.
And maybe just where it's in just in the jurisdictional areas.
Yep.
That would be fine.
Yep.
And with the, like a title block in the right-hand corner at the bottom.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So we do have some photos just to kind of orient everyone a bit. So this first one on the left here, this is showing the 150-foot and 100-foot buffer zones to Wetland 2, which is located at the southern extent of Section 2, just north of Harrison Ave. And then that second photo is an upland area along Section 2, located north of Kilby Street along the existing corridor. So this slide on the left, that's where you're seeing the Cummings Brook looking west away from the corridor. And then on the right is where it transitions into the canal itself. And then this here on the left, you're seeing that other perennial stream that's unnamed, that's located south of the Middlesex Canal Park access road. And then on the right, you're seeing the associated buffer zone and riverfront area at the end of the Section 2 here. And here, this is showing the buffer zones to Bank and Wetland 5 on the left. And this area is located north of Alfred Street in Section 3. And the photo on the right is, again, just an image of what the buffer zone looks like to Wetland 6, which is in a similar area north of Alfred Street. So with regard to the work in these resource areas, the project is not proposing any impacts to Bank or BBW or LUWW. However, it is proposing work within the riverfront area, including the construction of the path itself, associated vegetative clearing and landscaping, associated grading, and it is limited to work within these portions of riverfront area that are, again, disturbed due to human traffic through there. Work within the buffer zones and the 25-foot no disturb is the same as within riverfront, in addition to the installation of those wooden railings in certain portions of the buffer zone along the path. And as mentioned, the project does qualify as a limited project, and we are seeking relief for work within the 25-foot no disturb, so we are seeking a waiver for that. And just want to emphasize that erosion controls will be installed, compost filter tubes, catch basin protection, tree protection fences where possible, and vegetative cover will be maintained as feasible, and areas of disturbance that aren't paved following the completion of work will be vegetated and seeded with a native mix after construction. And we did just have this to pull up one more time if anyone had any other questions or wanted to take a closer look.
The other thing I'll add too, that I meant to mention at the beginning, is we are still working towards our final design on this project. So when that is finalized, we'd also be resubmitting those plans as well. There's not going to be major changes, especially along the corridor itself. It's more related to intersections and street crossings that are being updated. But we are still working with those, and there is going to be another public hearing regarding this project with the public to discuss those finalized changes. But we wanted to get the process started with you all tonight, just to make sure that any comments or concerns that you guys had were also incorporated into that 100% design.
I just have a question. You talked about this being a non-motorized path. How is that designated? Is there signage? Is there enforcement?
There will be signage, and there will be as much enforcement as can be provided by the city. It's not a fully guarantee that no one can go on it. There's no way to completely keep people off of it, but it's a 10-foot wide path. There will be signage at the entrances. It will look like a bike path with the gateways, and there will be like signage and granite posts at every roadway entrance to the path.
If I may,
Yes.
Jay Cordes, the city engineer. What we have on the tri-community bike ramp, bikeway is removable bollards so that an emergency vehicle can get up there, but you generally can't drive a car up there. I suppose if somebody has the desire to get on there, they could, but generally we're looking at people who obey signage and say, oh, that bollard's there for a reason.
So, but I wasn't just thinking of cars. I was also thinking of like motorcycles and things like that.
The best we can do there is signage and enforcement.
Thank you.
Any questions from the commission?
I just have one quick question. This is very aggressive and very impressive. I'm just wondering about timing. What's the timetable on this?
So we're moving towards 100% design towards the end of this month. We'll have to have another public hearing, and then looking to submit PS&E documents. So this is working off towards the end of June.
Wow.
This is working off a Mass Trails grant, which has a funding deadline at the end of June. And then the city would need to secure funding for construction after that and move towards construction at a later date.
Just to expound on what Josh said, Mass Trails grants, when you receive them, you essentially have 9 months to do your work. So we have a $500,000 project design that extends from North Woburn all the way down to Library Field, trying to have a robust public engagement period. We've only had one public hearing so far. They have to do enough design so that, and survey and wetlands delineation before they can put anything on paper. So we had our first public hearing back in April, and we only have 2 months left to complete this project.
Wow.
I know, it's really a step and fetch it, you know. Yeah, thanks. And it's almost like, I feel like we're almost premature here because we're still working on design. But in order to meet our deadlines with the Mass Trails grant, I had to beg Teresa to
Well,
allow us to be here.
Yes, tick-tock, tick-tock, I got it. That's great.
Mr. Chairman, just a question on, sorry if I missed it, the Middlesex Canal Association, what input from them?
Yes, essentially, the Middlesex Canal Association submitted for a bikeway, or they talked about a bikeway and improvements to the canal maybe 6 years ago. So the preliminary design that they had for the bikeway, we've mirrored so that we stay on the railroad right-of-way, not down on the towpath. And we have a meeting with them. We've met with Len Harmon. I've talked to some of the people who are on the Middlesex Canal Commission. We have one more meeting with them, but they, generally, I believe they're satisfied with everything we're doing.
Would there be maybe a letter from them in support or whatever, just once this gets in motion, if it continues? Just, I don't know if it matters or not, but just, I don't know how much control they have.
I do believe that the application was signed by the Middlesex Canal Association, Commission?
Yes, Len
Association?
Harmon is the Woburn representative to the Middlesex Canal Commission. He's authorized to sign for that.
Yes,
Okay.
that was not in the copy that went to you, but I do have a signed copy.
All right, that sounds, okay.
And obviously, when we got our grant, they had to be a landowner's permission,
Sure.
which they signed. So they're well aware of the project.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions, and I really thank you for presenting this tonight. It looks like a great project. The questions I have, and maybe jumping ahead just a little bit, if you're giving some thought to overall, there's going to be quite a bit of removal of planting material. There's going to be trees that might be coming down. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you given thought to what a tree program would look like, or what a planting program would look like to augment the path itself? That's one. And the second one is, how do we ensure protection of the entire riverfront, both Cummings Brook, the Middlesex Canal now, and keeping that free of debris? And it also goes to the residential portions of this as well. What kind of protections are going to go in place that are going to prevent that debris from getting down into the waterway, into the riverfront areas and any kind of jurisdictional areas? So if you've given some thought to that, I'd like to know that. And if it's not in the plans now, it might be something you'd want to think about getting into the plans going forward.
If I may, since I'm more familiar with how we maintain the tri-community bikeway, if you walk that or
Yeah.
ridden a bicycle or a scooter, however you, just on a motorcycle, the DPW and Parks Department maintain it. They collect trash. What we found is that when you build it in somebody's backyard, if there's a Dixie cup or a cigarette butt or anything like that, we get calls. And we address it immediately, and we have trash bins all along the course that are periodically picked up. And we haven't really had any problems over there. The biggest problem that we've had is, probably shouldn't say this since we're on TV, but one resident was throwing grass clippings over the fence.
Yeah.
It wasn't us, but we, generally speaking, it's been a very good experience over there.
So that's good to know, and if you could mirror that same type of condition that you have, a setup that you have that you're using there, and bring it into this, that would be I think that would be a big win. The other part of it is that really goes to the whole operation and maintenance plan and sustainability plan for the project going forward. So when you launch it now, and you put this plan in place, you want to make sure that 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, it's sustainable and it's as good now as when we first launched it to the way it is 10 or 15 years from now. So I would look for that type of plan. If there isn't one, I would recommend that you give it some thought and see if you can put that type of plan in place.
Good enough.
I'd like to see
I'll
that.
discuss it with the powers that really take care of these things.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Quick question for Jay. Mr. On the city portion of it, doing the DPW cleanup that you mentioned on the bike path, how would they do this? Because without getting in with the vehicle, it's a good length of trail. Would they be,
Question.
would they be in there with, walking stuff out? or-
Well, generally, they'll bring a pickup truck in with a crew, and they'll just go along the course and pick up litter and maintain shrubs and do what they have to do. They
So-
generally spend about a day in there.
So a maintenance crew with maybe one vehicle?
Yep.
Obviously, that,
Again, and if
To be-
you haven't been over to the Tri-Community Bikeway in East Woburn, I'd recommend you look at it, and you'll have an idea of what we're capable of doing.
Okay, on the, I guess on the subject of maintenance, so is there money in the budget to, we could get a lot of projects coming up and going on. Is there money in the grant funding that is put aside for X amount of maintenance?
That would, in a perfect world, no.
Yeah, okay.
That's something that we have to fund on our own.
Okay. Just on the bikeway itself, or the multimodal, what's the demand been out there for this? I mean, is there a real high demand? Do we really need this? Do we need to pave almost 2 miles of pathway if no one's going to be, I mean, I know people are going to use it, but is there a real great demand for
We had a
this?
turnout of approximately 70 people at the public hearing, and say 30% were wearing bike regalia.
Yep.
Is there a need? Josh, you want to address this?
It's hard to fully answer that with a lot of paths like this. There's no projections into how many people would use a path until the path is actually kind of there.
If you build it, they will come.
There's a lot of other paths in the area that have been constructed. They're well used, they're well liked, especially in situations like this where there's already a walking path that's there. You can see that people are currently using it. By paving it, you're just making it more accessible and especially improving the crossings to make those safer for everybody involved.
Yeah.
So it's hard to fully say this many people are going to use it, but in experience around the Commonwealth where a lot of these projects are happening, they are pretty well used.
Well, yeah, my concern, I guess, is the path up from School Street to
Alfred, there.
Alfred,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, you cannot you can't get out to Alfred, right, unless you go across, you'd be trespassing on private property there, right?
Well, we're talking to those people. There's a number of people that we're talking to. John Dodge's another one. Recently, we had discussions with him where he'd like to dedicate several spaces and a bike rack for people who want to park there and get on the path. There's going to be opportunities going forward.
Okay. In terms of, I guess, tree and shrub and vegetation removal, I mean, I did count on the plans. We're going to retain about 25 trees in the from the Wind Street to, not Wind Street, yeah, Wind Street to Kilby Street area. And then 3 trees, like on the plan, it shows the trees that are being retained. It doesn't tell us which trees are coming down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Which would be
we'd wanna
really nice to
count on
know.
that.
yeah.
So I'm trying
And there's a
to,
lot of trees out there.
Unplug and replug into.
Big trees.
trying to get this to show back up there.
And that has something to do with the stormwater as well. I mean, when you start taking away all this vegetation, the evapotranspiration is now almost nil.
Yep.
You know, erosion, because of the root surface is now basically nil. I mean,
So-
planting grass is not going to make up for taking down, 12-inch to 25-inch, 26-inch caliper trees.
So the trees removed are basically between the 2 limited grading lines that are shown on each side. So anything outside that limited grading line, those trees would be retained. Anything inside, the trees would be removed.
And-
And when we submit the plans again with these colored up, I can include the landscaping plans.
Excuse me, Josh, can you talk to the microphone? It's hard for you to hear. You
Sorry.
Projecting voice there.
Can you guys hear me now? Sorry about that. So it goes, the trees to be removed would go from this dashed line on the top side to the dashed line on the bottom side. There would maybe be some trimming of just limbs and branches outside to the limited clearing grubbing here. And then there was proposed landscaping to kind of fill these areas that we need for the construction, for the slopes, with shrubs and native grasses to kind of help replenish after those trees are removed.
Okay. How are you going to protect, I mean, it's, if you're, I don't know, how deep do you go? I know.
So
Path.
the intent is basically, for the most part, and except where we have to do some grading to bring up or down the grade, the path is about a foot of excavation.
Okay.
And then you come back up to more or less the existing grade, and then you just grade out the side slopes on each side. So
Okay.
it's not a deep excavation. There's some locations where we have to bring it down, maybe upwards of like 3 feet, just to create a 10-foot level where the old railroad was. But for the most part, it's not that deep.
I hear excavation. Does that mean there's going to be stockpiles? And if there are, where are they going to be? And they will need to be protected.
Yep. And so the contractor would be responsible eventually when this would go out to bid to kind of provide those stockpile locations. A lot of times with bike paths like this, where you're working in a limited corridor, they seek stockpile locations kind of off-site in different locations where they rent out from private properties. Or they would seek to put kind of stockpiles at maybe one end of a section that they're working on and then protect that, maintain it, and then move it off-site before they get to that section.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question getting back to the hot top, the paving. Since it's on the riverfront, was there any alternatives considered for the hot top portion of it? I mean, you see bike paths with, pretty hard top
Gravel, yeah.
gravel, pervious material,
So we do try to consider those things, but when you switch from a hot top to any of those gravels, it's no longer considered ADA compliant. So the only way to kind of fully put out an ADA compliant path is to put the hot top on
So
top of
that's
it.
the only way that, okay, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense, I suppose. And this obviously needs to be with the funding and all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just along those lines, does an ADA project, accessible project, the path need to be 10 feet wide, or can it be 8 feet?
So in Massachusetts, the preferred width of a path is 12 feet wide, and they're even pushing on 14 foot on a lot of projects now. 10 foot is really kind of the accepted minimum. If there's really a pinch point, you can bring that down to 8, but 10 feet is kind of the minimum that we try to go for a path that accommodates potential bike users and pedestrians, because it gives people opportunity to pass each other
Right.
safely.
Okay. Is the path going to be plowed? Will it be open in the wintertime?
I don't believe there's intent to plow
We
it.
don't follow the other path.
Okay. I think that maybe would be a condition if it's approved, yeah.
Yeah, true.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I have one other question, just on the excavation piece of this. So, what are you planning to put in place, protections to put in place during that excavation process for any of the wildlife that's, number one, living along those Cummings Brook and the Middlesex Canal, because there are nest spots all along that, and also in the upland areas that are just above where the waterway is, there are also nesting areas in there as well. And I'd like you to put in some protections, or think about putting in protections for that, at least understanding that there is wildlife that's living in there that is potentially impacted. Now, I know this is not a priority habitat for rare species, I know that, and I know it's not an estimated habitat for wildlife either. But that said, there is plenty of wildlife that's living along that, and I'd like to make sure that that's protected during that excavation process. And the other part of it is, knowing that it is a waterway and there's excavation going on, have you thought about some sort of rodent control plan that would go into place? Because you might be disturbing some other types of, rodents that are out there, and I want to make sure that we're not putting anything in place that's going to impact the hawks, owls, eagles that might be coming along, or coyotes and foxes. I want to make sure that there's a good, solid rodent control plan in place, if that's the case. If that's going to be used, I'd like to know what the plan is, and I'd like to see that plan before I at least render a decision on this.
Okay. So we are using the standard erosion control barriers along the project limits to protect the resource areas. So compost filter tubes, we can, if there's desire for additional, we could put some silt fence behind those as well. We've done that previously on bike paths. As far as wildlife protection, we could work on language and requirements for contractors with the commission if that's a condition you would be seeking to put in to any potential approval. And the erosion control plan would be more or less standard Mass DOT language, and we can provide that erosion control plan to you and that specification to you guys for your review.
Would need the details, how it's staked in, and
Yep.
the distance between the stakes. And all that.
Yep.
Yeah, I would most definitely like to see that type of rodent control plan as an order of conditions. I'd like to at least see what that is and make sure that we've got the right controls in place if you think you're going to need that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yep.
So in the alternatives analysis, you mentioned other routes, but you didn't actually tell the commission what they were. Do you have
So the other-
provide a plan showing the alternative routes that you analyzed and why they're not viable, or why they're more, why they would cause more alteration, particularly in the riverfront areas?
Yep.
And also on the bridge that's over Cummings Brook, is that being replaced or is that staying? So that's just remaining as is?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the commission members have asked a lot of questions that I had, but when you are redoing the plans and updating the plans, I agree the colors are very, very helpful. But also on the plans, I noticed like the text in some ways it's right side up and some places it's upside down. If it could all be in the same direction, it makes it a lot easier when trying to review it. So I appreciate
check that, yeah.
Thank you.
Are you talking about
So it looks like
the
this.
gray text?
Right, so
Okay.
if you look at that,
Yeah.
it just looks like there was a plan and then it was added to it, but it was,
Yeah, that's just
it
the
was
survey.
just looked at from a
We-
different perspective.
We'll,
And
we'll flip the survey text to go the same direction
That
as
would-
the
that'd be
black text.
great. Thank
Yep,
you.
No problem.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just one other question. Was there a tree planting or some kind of a tree planting plan?
We have a landscaping plan. We can, if that wasn't included, we'll,
Not included.
It's not included?
okay, we'll add that to the
Thank you.
updated color set that we'll send in.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry, and that just reminds me too, on the planting plan, do you also have like tree protection plan as well, or details
Yes.
on that? Okay, great,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just would it be possible to stake out the limits of work out there? So if we wanted to do a site walk, we could at least have an idea of, I mean, I have an idea obviously with the plans, but it would be a little easier if we had some, doesn't have to be one every 10 feet, but, you know, something close to what's proposed so that we could walk it and see what's going to be actually happening. And I kind of know, but
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do that with the limits are just kind of the outside of the path. But
Right.
yeah, we can work with you guys to come up with a way to do that.
okay, thank you.
Anything else? Again, this is a public hearing. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on the matter, again, if you could just limit yourself to a short period of time. And again, if you hear a question that's already been asked, I would ask you to hold back on that. So, anybody in the audience, step up. Print your name on the sign-in sheet and identify yourself for our note taker.
Does it matter which one?
Doesn't matter.
Hi, my name is Linda Budnick, and I live at Place Lane, and I am the chair of the Board of Trustees, and this bike path goes right behind our property, and we are obviously very concerned about a few items. I'm just curious, at the next public hearing, if we could actually have a slide of that handout, because it's very difficult to see back there, and it would maybe ease some of our concerns as far as what's being done.
So do you want to see a slide of the Place Lane area? 'Cause
Well,
the whole thing.
If I may, we'll put all of the project information on our project website, and we'll put out a link to it. So all you have to do is go online, you'll be able to see any of the presentation, all the construction plans, the details, and everything that we've done.
Okay, just so you know, our vice chair sent you a whole bunch of questions about a week and a half ago, and we hadn't heard anything from you. You're the city,
I am.
okay.
It's probably in my junk mail because I would have addressed that.
Okay, it was on March 29th,
Okay.
so.
I apologize. I forwarded anything that I have to our consultants, so.
Okay, all right, that's fine. May I assume that there's not going to be any lights on the bike path?
Correct.
Okay.
No lighting.
Okay. The other thing is the signage. Is there going to be a time frame that says the bike path is open from 7 to 8, or can people go on at any time that they want?
Generally, the rules on the other bikeway is it's open from dawn to dusk.
Is there going to be a sign that says that?
Yes, there'll be rules at each end of the reach.
Okay, and are you going to clarify as far as, so this is, they can't do battery-powered skateboards or gas-powered mopeds?
No motorized elements.
Okay.
That's what the signage will say.
Okay,
Electric vehicles, I'm not sure if I can prohibit those. There are people like my age who use e-bikes.
okay. All right, so, but there will be the signage that says, okay. Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for us is seeing what it's going to look like, because we have a fence there that's 38 years old, and someone from the bike path could easily get on our property. And, that's what we're concerned about. And the noise. And how is this all going to be enforced? I mean, so we have some teenagers at 10 o'clock at night having a party out there. Call the police? Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to the next abutter, I just had a question for the applicant. Do you know when the public meeting is that you're holding? Do you have a date yet?
It'll be sometime in the next few weeks. I have to talk with the mayor's office as to when it would be appropriate.
And that will be posted on the project website?
Yes.
For people to
Yeah, and
find?
Smith Stone sends it out on Instapot and MyFace and all those things.
Social media?
That stuff,
Yeah, thank you.
None of us use it, so.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak on the matter? Step forward. Oh, you'll be up next. So, have a seat in the front there.
Hi, my name is Deborah Finn. I'm a direct abutter to this bike path. I'm conflicted about the whole thing, to tell you honestly. I'm on the Wynn Street end of it. We're about 8 to 10 feet below grade of the railroad bed, so we're going to lose all our privacy. Our bedrooms are on that end of the house. And already, you know, it's been a walk path for years. I've been in the neighborhood since 1957, lived in my house since 1976. Everybody walks it, and I have no problem with that, dog walkers and all that. But like the woman said ahead of me, there are times that there are kids up there with their foul language, partying, smoking, you know, weed and drinking and all that. It does go on. Since probably 1980, we have been the victims of vandalism 3 times, just because of the close proximity of our house. We had a shed that my father had built that we converted into a dollhouse for our young little girls, burnt to the ground on New Year's Eve for no reason. It was just kids having a good time. And then we had spray painted, we had brand new white siding, and we had somebody vandalized big red letters on the front of our house. And then we had kids up on the tracks just picking up rocks, taking a big stick and hitting the side of our house. It took us a couple of months to find them. We did. We caught them red-handed. They came from good families. And we walked them down to the police station, and the kids admitted it to the police. We didn't want to press charges. And the police told us to call, and the parents agreed to pay for restitution. We gave them a couple days to kind of cool it down a little bit. We called. None of the parents were cooperative. We had to pay for all the damages ourselves out of pocket. And with the cost of materials going up, and, you know, you're not supposed to put in a claim with your homeowner's insurance because they could drop you and all that. So I have some really legitimate concerns, I think. That's all I want to say. I think it's a good idea. I like the idea. The kids can ride their bike, hopefully safely. The people can walk their dogs and all that, but I am concerned about the vandalism. I feel like right now, kind of the only people that know about it are people that live in the neighborhood. Now, everybody's going to know about it, and we're going to have a lot more foot traffic up there. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your concerns, and I feel for you. Unfortunately for us, like as Conservation Commissioners, we don't really have a lot of sway when it comes to vandalism, things like that. But, you know, your ward counselor, you know, you should express your feelings to them as well.
I will, and I do. I really feel bad. I don't really want to shoot it down. I just want, if everything went the way it's supposed to go, you know, and then another concern is we do have junky trees, that's what we call them. And everybody in the neighborhood knows enough not to walk on a windy day or a snow when it snows, because those trees just come down. They go right across the path. Sometimes they fall onto our property. The neighbors right now will cut up the trees and kind of clear them so that you can still walk your dog or whatever. So that's another concern that I have. All right?
Thank you.
And another thing, we didn't know about the first meeting. We were really kind of upset about that. We don't get the Woburn Daily Times. We heard about the first meeting back in April from a neighbor. And we're direct abutters. I really feel like we should have been notified.
Can I address that? So this is the first meeting with the Conservation Commission.
Right.
The other meeting was a public meeting.
Right, and we didn't know anything about
the
it.
commission. So this meeting, abutters are notified, and there is a notice that goes into the newspaper. I'm expecting that this will continue. There will not be a second notice.
Okay.
So pay attention to the date that it's continued to.
Okay.
But I can't address the other.
I understand. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before we continue, as Commissioner Lona stated, I will reiterate that we're here to hear concerns about conservation information, and the place to talk about the vandalism and so on and so forth is at the actual public meetings that they hold, the city holds. It's typically over at the library. So again, any concerns that are not conservation issues, you probably should hold off on asking us those questions because we don't have any answers, but we certainly can address conservation issues. So, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Joe Santoro, and I own property on 9 Lowell Street rear. And my house is 15 feet to the property line. It starts from the house to the property line, and we've had nothing but problems there. I'm wondering what's going to happen after all these people running down with kids in the backyard. Who's going to protect these kids? The tenants have kids. What are they going to? Who's going to protect them? I call the city up when things are stolen out of the yard. No concern. They don't. Nothing done.
Yeah,
I had to put posted signs on a fence. No trespassing. They do walk by there, and we have a lot of problems.
Right. Those are not conservation issues. I have no answer for you. The place to vent those issues is at the public meetings that they have.
How do you find that out?
Well, as Mr. Corey just said, what were the places you post?
We do it on social media, we do it in the newspaper, we put it on the
I'm
website.
I'm in Burlington.
We don't post in Burlington.
No, I know. But I own the property, and I rent it out, and I've had a number of calls from my tenant with the problems.
If you leave your name and number with me, I'll find a way to get a hold of you.
Maybe you
Please,
could
I have concerns about it. They're afraid.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, anybody's welcome. This lady over here, I had her in my office, we had a long conversation, and I understand that these are not conservation issues. I'd be glad to hear from anybody in the audience who wants to talk about things that aren't conservation issues, and we can address them. And just briefly, as I indicated before, people walk these paths. We don't have a railroad there anymore, but people use them. And kids who aren't the nicest kids in the world, I imagine, if they want to congregate, they don't congregate on a path where people are walking. They go in the woods where nobody's going to see them. So by having a formal multimodal walkway, you move these bad influences, if you will, to other areas. And again, I don't want to get off conservation, but you're welcome to send me an email or come to my office, and we'd be happy to talk about it at the next meeting.
I stopped at the city hall here, and there was nobody there. I talked to a gentleman where, I guess the lady has a desk there downstairs, and there was nobody there, and the gentleman was answering a lot of questions, showing me how the property, but I got 15 feet from the house to the car park.
Imagine what it was like when there was a train there.
Houses weren't there.
perhaps, Mr. Chairman.
Again, we're getting off the conservation.
City council, like they could
Sir?
contact their,
Again, if
all the
you
persons.
get in touch with the city engineer, that would maybe help.
And
Again, I would like to reiterate, if anybody else has any questions or comments, please relate them to conservation issues only. We could be here all night if we were listening to all of these situations, but they're not conservation situations. So, again, is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman?
Of conservation issues?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could get the applicant's attention, if there are people that have questions that aren't related to conservation, would you be willing to take their names and email addresses and let them know when these public hearings are going to be?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Not a problem.
So, anybody else like to speak? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission. Any last questions or comments?
I'm sorry, one more person?
Yep. Again, if you would sign in and state your name for our note taker.
Absolutely. Michael Tedesco, lifelong resident of Woburn. My family's grown up in South Woburn, moved up to North Woburn. We frequently go to Hon Pond and walk with our dog. Just tonight, for the first time, we're down there walking through the Middlesex Canal for the second time in my life, up by School Street in Merrimack. We ran into John Beauchamp about the cleanup on Saturday for the Wren project. And to me, that's Woburn. That is like, how stuff gets done. I spoke to him, didn't know anything about it. I emailed the people that I've been coaching and involved with in the city of Woburn for the last 30 years, and I think we maybe have 30 people showing up Saturday morning. What's going on down here, we're walking this trail for the second time in our life with our dog up in North Woburn, and, our dog runs into a beaver it must have been 50 pounds. And, my wife's screaming, "Oh, what's going on?"
They chew it on trees?
Yeah. The beaver took off and ran up a tree. But my question is, do we know how many animals are going to be impacted by this renovation?
I think Commissioner Joyce has approached that issue, and I think the applicant has heard the concerns, and I think that's going to be looked at.
Okay. Just looked at as far as like in detailed study and then the impact.
Impact on what changes due to the bike path in terms of the environment, the habitat, and we will.
And an action plan.
Yeah, because that's why we go to Hon Pond. That's why we walk these back routes, and to put pavement down, that kind of, to me, takes away from everything. We're backtracking away from old Woburn.
But you've also heard one of the commissioners ask if there were alternatives to the path itself, the material, and I think
we already heard because of ADA, that's not going to happen.
Your hands are tied.
Yeah. And on the same note, you're bringing up the gravel versus pavement. That just gives somebody a quicker escape if they want to do something, devious to somebody's property.
right. So I think those, to your question, I think those issues have been addressed, and I think the applicant has heard, and I think we'll probably get a response.
Okay. So there'll be a detailed study done on all the environmental impacts to the living creatures in the area.
I'm thinking that there is not a requirement for them to do that, because there's no endangered species, there's no priority habitat there, so they're not required to do that. What we're looking at is, I think what Jim is looking at is what the effect of cutting, like if there's a tree with an owl's nest in it, are we going to cut, we don't want them to cut that tree down.
I'm pretty sure tonight, walking up in the North Middlesex Canal, I saw a plover, on the edge of the canal. I could be
Might have
wrong.
been a killdeer.
I'm not a bird expert, but.
I think it was a killdeer.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So I would like to see, something detailed done to, see the animals involved that will be impacted by this.
If I could address this, essentially, when you're doing a bikeway, they do detailed assessments of habitat and displacement of habitat for priority habitat areas. When you have a general area where people walk, there's a pathway through the woods, yes, you have ancillary areas where animals live, move around. but they're the same animals that you have in your backyard. We will address it in a general way, but we're not going to do a complete study of every animal and crustacean that's in the habitat there. That will not happen. Unless it's required, and a study like that would just probably put the project under.
Okay, so
Thank you.
if we don't care about the small animals out there, then, the non-indigenous, then if you people are good, I guess I'm good.
So,
Yeah.
Sir, I want to thank you for your comments, and I'll just make one comment. So I deeply care about not only the small living creatures, I care about all of them that are living out there, and I want to ensure that whatever we do, that we are minimally invasive, if you want to put it that way.
That's a nice term,
When you tell me
yes.
that there's a beaver
Yeah.
that's down in the Middlesex Canal along that rail path, which I walk, so that's a big deal to me. The reason why is because I know that the beavers go back and forth from Horn Pond, and they go up that canal, and they move along. And so that's a big deal. I want to make sure that when we put this bike path in, that we're not upsetting what it's living out there, and that we ensure that, number one, we put protections in place that make sure that when we dig up the ground and we do all that we're not displacing them, or displacing them as little as possible. And the second part of it is that people should be able to enjoy all of that. So when you're riding a bike along a canal and you see a beaver that's living along the side or coming up the river, that's a big deal. And we should really be promoting that as an educational experience, as a conservation educational experience. So that's why I'm pressing, and I want to make sure that we put the right controls in place that protect all of that's out there, as well as make sure that we have the right, a bike path that we can all look at and say, hey, this is great for everybody, but everybody includes what lives out there too. So
Yeah.
that's my comment. I thank you very much for,
Yeah, and on the same note, if you take the bike path in Arlington or, and you're not seeing the wildlife,
yeah.
around the, bike paths that.
They don't have what we have.
Correct.
And I'm sorry if I gave you the impression that I don't care.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, how much study has been done, rather than just, the indigenous animals in the area.
Sure. I understand what you're saying, and we will deal with it in a general fashion. I just wanted to point out that, as you indicated, there's environmental signage that goes along this path. So if we have a habitat for a beaver, right? Hopefully they're not building dams, but we have a beaver house, then we would have signage for that. If we know of a nesting area that somebody can point out to us, we will have environmental signage, so that people walking along can not only enjoy the splendor of the outside, but they can learn something as well.
Right.
thank you, Jay.
I just think things are fine the way they are, but, okay, thank you.
Thank you for your concern.
Let's go.
All right, back to the commission. Any last questions, comments?
Yes, I don't believe that the filing that was submitted contained an operation and maintenance plan. Can you submit that? And if I'm wrong, just if it was in there.
We'll
I
submit
missed
that with the updated stormwater report. It's usually like the last page in that, so we'll submit that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, is it the applicant's wish that we continue the public hearing?
We do.
Do you want to do it in 2 weeks, or do you think we should go out a month? 2 weeks, a month? We have the date?
Yeah, June, I think 13th, hang on.
I think we can take what we heard tonight, kind of work that in, make sure we're providing you guys with comprehensive responses, and we'll submit 3 weeks and then look to go for the month, if that
Okay.
works.
I believe it's June 13th.
Yeah, on the 13th.
I move that we continue this public hearing to our June 13th meeting at 6:30.
It's June 13th.
Second?
Second.
Second by Steve, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions?
Did you second that?
Thank you.
Make the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
June 13th, that's what I was putting that in my calendar.
Oh, okay.
June 13th, yep.
Okay, thanks.
So
I told them so.
I don't have my June date, so what is it, the 13th,
Yeah.
27th?
What am I gonna do? I say to them,
June 13th? That's,
Not in my calendar. I think Teresa.
So June.
Excuse me, could I have some quiet, please?
And 6:30.
Jim, I move to recess for 1 minute.
Yes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
City's gonna love.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to reconvene.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, next on the agenda, two hearings left. They are at the same locus, so I'm going to open both hearings at the same time. I think they're interconnected, so as the presentation goes on, the different information will be describing, the petitioner will let us know whether it's related to the park or related to Cummings Brook. So with that said, next on the agenda is the City of Woburn, locus is 75 Bedford Road, the Hurl Park. Notice of intent, DP number 348-867, nature-based public park. And in addition, the City of Woburn, locus 75 Bedford Road, Hurl Park. Notice of intent 348-866, Cummings Brook Restoration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name's Jay Corey. I'm the city engineer. I'm very excited about both of these projects. We've been working on this now for about 3 years. We've had numerous public awareness, public participation meetings, both of the library on site. We have funding from FEMA, we have funding from MVP, and I think these projects have a lot of traction. As a private engineer and as a city engineer, I've worked on a lot of notices of intent where we've done things. When I was on the dark side, we would get as close to the wetlands as we possibly could. We would do everything we could to develop what was there. An environmental restoration project is something that I'm very keen on. I'm very excited about this project because we are actually going to get rid of invasives, put a stream that's been turned into a ditch back to a meandering stream, add floodplain, and have trails and boardwalks through the environmental area where everybody can really enjoy it. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Relstab from Horsley Witten. She is one of my favorite consultants of all time. She is doing a great job with this project. Her assistant, Jamie McCarthy, is also wonderful. I will turn it over to them. Thank you.
All right. Can everybody hear me in the back? I know there were some issues with that before. I'll try to speak loudly and clearly. My name is Jennifer Relstab. I'm a senior water resources engineer with Horsley Witten, as was mentioned. Just before I start, if you can't hear me, please let me know. We have boards tonight before you so that folks can see it a little bit clearly, more clearly. We have this presentation. We also have some handouts of the boards if folks can't see anything. So please let me know if you do. As Jay mentioned, we have had several, actually a dozen public hearings since 2021. So this is going to be a little bit of a brief background, and I'm happy to take any questions if there's anything that I miss here. The project is located at 75 Bedford Road. It is located on a public city-owned property. On the south side, as you can see, the aerial here is currently developed with the former Hurled Elementary School, which is no longer in service. That consists of a parking lot, a building, and a lawn. That school is, city is currently working to demo that building as part of a capital project, which has been before this commission last year as a RDA. That's just important to notice as we go forward with the proceedings in terms of understanding what is happening in terms of existing conditions. On the north side is an 8-acre forested upland for the majority. It also consists of bordering vegetated wetland, isolated vegetated wetland, and of course Cummings Brook, which currently bisects as it travels from Sheridan Street through and to Bamberg. The existing site, as I mentioned, has several resource areas. The stream is fairly straightened as it turns to 90 degrees to get into the site on Sheridan, and then 90 degrees to get out of the site at Bamberg. And you can see the culverts in those photos there. The site does have some isolated depressions and areas of ponding that we've seen during the various storm events and including the last few events in this winter and spring. As Jay mentioned, the site is, although forested and there are a lot of trees, the primary understory is invasive. It is very much overgrown and overburdening the ecosystem here. We did conduct a site walk as part of our pre-permitting coordination with the commission back in December to look at this, and these are some of the pictures that we took at that time, and you can see these are actually winter, early spring photos. If you're out there now, we're starting to see some of that growth and density that we get from these invasive species, which are fairly aggressive, and you can see with the bittersweet taking over some of those native tree species. We have a lot of circulation within the system, within the site, that is already being used by the neighborhood for walking their dogs, playing and throwing catch with families. These are some of the pictures of the conditions of the footpaths and paths on site. There is an existing asphalt path that connects Sheridan Street to the school, and you'll see this as part of our concept that we're really trying to retain to the extent possible those existing footpaths so that we can kind of keep the circulation similar to what it is today. And then there is obviously access also, footpath access and residential abutter access from Sheridan Street and from abutters on Bamberg as well. I just wanted to touch briefly again on the public engagement. We've had several public hearings, public meetings, off-site, virtually, on-site, site walks. We've had surveys, stakeholder meetings. We've been to Conservation Day. We have had several workshops. We spoke about the engagement in at the library back in the fall. We just had another virtual meeting in April, and we are having an on-site workshop on June 13th, where we are going to be removing some of the trash and debris that currently exists on site, and are hopeful that some of these opportunities are going to really help engage folks and interest them in the park project. Just a brief overview of what our design priorities are. We want to create a space that's accessible for all ages, abilities, and diverse backgrounds. We are within a mile of an environmental justice community, and our focus here is not only addressing the climate, flooding, heat resiliency pieces of this project that are going to be critical for the city and their open spaces moving forward, but we also have to consider the broader community health and the access to open space that is really critical for the well-being of the broader public, both active and passive types. This is a lot. It's a really dense slide. But when we think about climate resilience, it takes a lot of different forms. Some of that is really mitigation, so protecting a lot of the existing trees on site, using or reusing soils to the extent possible, not taking those off-site to either state or other landfills. Really thinking about infiltration as a primary way for us to mitigate impacts for stormwater, expanding our ecosystem. We're proposing over 100 additional trees on the south side of the project, for example, so that'll create additional canopy and wildlife habitat that currently isn't there now. For stormwater specifically, we're really focused on managing even more stormwater than is what we're proposing for impervious cover on site. So we're also doing work to vary that. So we have bioretention areas, a constructed wetland, we have a subsurface chamber system, we have pretreatment. We're really diversifying to the extent possible the opportunities for both surface and subsurface treatment to really maximize groundwater recharge and also filtering of those pollutants from stormwater runoff, which, Cummings Brook is, I think, one of the key, as we were talking about earlier in the last hearing, one of the key ways that we know that wildlife is accessing our open spaces between the upland part of the watershed all the way down to Horn Pond. And of course, being flexible with our design, we want to make sure that we're getting the most out of our open space. I just wanted to highlight here that we know that as part of the city's hazard mitigation plan, there is flooding that is happening and occurring on Cummings Brook. That's part of the reason why this project got selected as part of a broader analysis that was conducted by several consultants back in 2020 and 2021, and identified this site as a priority site because it addresses both local and regional flooding, as well as supports the broader climate resiliency goals of both the City of Woburn and the Mystic River Watershed Association. And this is just one of the components, the modeling part is one of the components that we had to do, and I think submitted to you as part of this work to show our design. And at this point, I just want to quickly provide an overview of the design components, and then I'm going to hand it over to my colleague to talk specifically about the notice of intents today. As I mentioned, this project has several different elements to it to address the climate resiliency. On the north side, as Jay mentioned, we have Cummings Brook, which is currently straightened. We're really increasing that sinuosity, providing log veins to support the stabilization of those banks, creating habitat for those wildlife, for the aquatic wildlife, and really thinking about flood storage by connecting the floodplain, which currently is bermed up by some of the spoils of the dredges of the brook from past maintenance. In addition to that, we're focusing on creating, again, surface green stormwater infrastructure. We have a constructed wetland on the north side off of Sheridan that's going to take water from Sheridan Street and portions of Wynn Street that is going to treat the 1 inch and provide water quality benefits for the existing bordering vegetated wetland. Beyond that, we have a meadow, native plantings, trees, canopy that we're adding to the space overall. And then we're also focusing obviously on the open space opportunities for the park, accessible permeable pathways, an accessible park for the community. We have some parking, and we have boardwalks as well as trailheads that'll give the opportunity for people to enjoy the space while not trampling or negatively impacting wildlife and habitat. At this time, I'm going to just take a pause and let my colleague Jamie McCarthy introduce the notice of intents and the different types of work that we're doing under those notice of intents.
I'm going to start by doing a brief overview of the resource areas that are present on site. I'll put the zoomed in version of the movement slide. All right, so these are the jurisdictional resource areas. They're jurisdictional either under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and or the Woburn's Wetlands Protection and Conservation Ordinance. Everybody hear me okay? In green here is the vegetated wetlands, bordering land subject to flooding is poking out along the stream and behind the vegetated wetland, and that's in purple. Cummings Brook is shown in blue, and the jurisdiction consists of Bank, which is the dark blue outline.
Excuse me, sorry, members of the commission. We're going to have you direct your attention to the board over here. I want to keep this up so you can kind of see. I know it's very hard to understand what's happening in the actual design versus what's happening in the different resource areas. So this is what we're referring to over here.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't speaking into the microphone, mumbling as I was putting those up.
And I'm sorry, before I forget, did you sign in?
We signed in.
You did? Great, thank you.
Okay, so vegetated wetlands in green, bordering land subject to flooding in purple. Cummings Brook is shown in blue with the dark blue outline representing the bank. Land under water bodies and waterways is shown as the streambed itself. And then the 200-foot riverfront area at 100 and 200 intervals extending from the stream is shown in orange. And then there are state and local buffer zones to wetlands, and those include the 25 no disturb zone, the 100-foot buffer zone, and the 150-foot adjoining land area buffer zone. So at the local level, under advisement from DEP, we have isolated the restoration activities from the park creation activities, as the impacts that are due to beneficial, like renaturalization of the stream bed and floodplain connectivity. Those improvements would be permitted differently than those that would occur due to creating a public park. So this public park notice of intent, it was filed as a limited project, and it's therefore required to meet the Wetlands Protection Act's performance standards to the maximum extent practicable. And as Jen described, the impacts to the resource areas have been avoided and minimized as much as possible, and the vegetated wetlands and bordering land subject to flooding impacts will be more than compensated for with the complementary restoration activities that will result in an increase of approximately a full acre of wetlands, more than a full acre actually, and a net increase of the site's flood storage capacity. So, the state and federal level permitting will review the project as a whole, and that will include MEPA review, Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. That's currently in progress. We'll also be filing a 401 water quality certification due to the classification of these waters as outstanding resource waters. They are part of the Horn Pond Public Water Supply watershed, and that affords them as additional protections. There will also be a Chapter 91 waterways application due, and that's due to the work to restore the stream, the in-water work. And the Section 404 general permit with the United States Army Corps of Engineers will also need to be filed because we are meeting their impact thresholds. So those 3 additional permits will be filed this month. And then I'd like to switch my boards here. Talk about the proposed tree coverage.
Much better.
Sorry. There's no scale that is great for this.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to mention in the last figure, the project areas, as they're separated, are highlighted. You'll see the yellow is the restoration activities, and the gray is the nature park activities. I'm gonna flip this so you can see. This is the full site. Yellow would be the restoration activities, and then the gray highlighted areas are all nature park. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the proposed canopy coverage. This is addressing the changes to the proposed to the canopy cover, as some vegetation removal will be necessary to complete the project. They're primarily to accommodate the restoration activities, but there's also some where the constructed stormwater wetland is proposed. That's in the top right corner there. Orange areas show where the vegetation removal will include trees, and that's about 1.5 acres. Yellow and orange striped areas show where the vegetation removal will primarily involve low-growth species like shrubs or herbaceous vegetation. That's about an additional acre. So the proposed plantings are shown as the green circles, and they are anticipated to result in a net increase in canopy coverage as they mature, particularly in the southern portion of the site where the school is.
Yes. Yes. So one of the things that we're doing as part of this project for mitigation is that we're planting almost, I think, 300 trees, and we are, I think, 450 shrubs. And then we are doing plugs and other seeding of meadow species, which are not shown. So these are actually only our tree coverage. So this doesn't actually include all the native species and shrubs that we're actually implementing at the site. And one of the things that that I want to hit on here too, which has been discussed earlier at a different hearing, is that maintenance and monitoring. As part of this project, because we do have to go through the MIPA process and several other permits, we will have to address some of the long-term monitoring that is required for this project, including creating a QAP, and that'll be something that we'll be doing as part of the final design plans. We are waiting for comments from MIPA and obviously from the commission tonight, as well as these other permits that are required through DEP and the Army Corps of Engineer before we finalize that, but we acknowledge that maintenance and monitoring of these restoration type projects are really critical in the success. The other thing I wanted to mention, referencing the invasive species, we have put together an invasive species plan already for the city to look at and review. We are looking with them for funding. It is a line item that we have in our budget, and we're seeking different sources to really look at that in advance. And we've actually been doing some great work with the Mystic River Watershed as part of some volunteer efforts, not just in the city, but in other communities, to address early action with invasive. So we are really hopeful that over the next year or so, as we work towards finalizing the permits and getting ready to prepare final plans, we will have some additional opportunities to address the invasives that are on site. At this time, I will welcome any questions from the commission, and I will just say from the broader public, actually I'm going to show it on the screen here, just so we can kind of see it. So this is just an image so we know where we're at. So like I said, we're at permitting. We have applied for several grants already this spring to continue to bring this project forward, including an MVP grant for the final design and construction of the park portion of the project. We are looking for we have applied for a Mass Trails grant, and we are looking for other opportunities, such as a park grant and others, to continue the funding for the design and construction of this process. And like Jamie mentioned, these permits, there are several of them, and they will take some time, and we do anticipate that those may take 12 to 18 months, all said, but those are mostly for the restoration portion of the project. And for the members of the public, if you're interested in learning more, there is a website that the city has that has all of, I think, or most of our presentations, our concept design, and we can obviously also put this presentation up there too if people are interested. And now I'm ready to take any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't wait to see it. Any questions, comments from the commission?
So, yes, I have a few. Firstly, it looks, I'm happy to see it. It looks like it's going to be a great project. I'm always concerned about, as you were talking about, the maintenance. It's a huge project to maintain, I believe, especially in the initial stages with invasive species. I'll be glad to see how that's going to be monitored and cared for. As far as stormwater, and this goes to the park and the school area, the infiltration, it appears as though there's some drainage coming off of Bedford Road that's going into, and that's different, right? That's not currently, it's not, that water is not going to the property today.
Correct.
Does that water need to be treated before it gets into that infiltration basin?
Yes, so we have we have a proprietary device a water quality treatment unit that we're proposing to capture that water from Bedford Road onto the property. I'll also note this, and we didn't discuss, but it is, this is a zone 2 area, so we are required by that to treat up to 44% of TSS. before it can even infiltrate into the ground. So you'll see that that's why we're proposing that. Similarly, for the parking lot, which is just off of Bedford, we're proposing a 4-bay, bioretention, and then that overflow connects to the subsurface chamber system. So we are having multiple steps of pretreatment that exist for the whole site, and including water that's coming off. That's true not just of Bedford, but also, as I mentioned, we're taking some water that currently flows down Wynn Street towards Sheridan, so going to the northwest. We're taking a portion and we're diverting a portion of that off, which now discharges directly into the Cummings Brook. We're taking that on site, treating that water, and allowing it to flow back into Cummings Brook, well, through the bordering vegetated wetland, but then also back to Cummings Brook treated. So there are multiple systems in place to make sure that that water quality is as clean as it can be before it gets into the resource areas.
Yep, okay. And will that, taking that water off of Wynn Street, is that going to alleviate any of the flooding in the area, do you believe?
Yeah, I think that with what we've seen, we did do a little bit of investigation as part of the H&H modeling work, and we did look at several of the culverts that are within the project area, not just the 2 that are on our site, but in the vicinity. And as was identified in the hazard mitigation plan, certainly there's a culvert on Wynn that is a challenge. It's a challenge to maintain. There's some issues there, and I think what will help is that redirecting that water and then treating it will really help those residents, which are specifically between Sheridan and Wynn in that kind of funky 90-degree turn. Yeah, so the hope there is that that alleviates that flooding, which we know has existed in over multiple years. Yeah.
Okay. And then back to the water coming off of the school area now. Is that going to take away from the hydrology that's kind of creating the wetland there?
No, I don't think so, because so I mean, part of what we're doing is infiltrating it, but we're only infiltrating the 1 inch. You know, we've seen these very, very large storms of which we have the capacity to maintain up to, I think, the 10-year with that chamber system. So we are still holding it back. But again, we are balancing that because we are adding water into that BBW through the Wynn Street diversion system. So on the balance, it actually is going to be very similar. And in addition to, right now there's 2 inputs. There's one that's coming from the school, and there's one that's coming from Elijah.
Right.
We're not doing anything with that at this time. Okay. So the only change in the system will be, in the outfall will be the one that from the school, and then of course the overflow from the constructed wetland.
Okay. That's all. I have a few more questions, but I'm sure everybody else does too.
Sure, no worries.
Anybody else on the commission have any questions?
Not right yet.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. So thank you very much for this is a great presentation. I am really looking forward to seeing what this ultimately is going to look like, and not only that, but going down there and be able to really enjoy it too. I think it's going to be really great for the city and for all of our residents and friends who like to go out there and see these kinds of things. So just I'm looking at the proposed project, and you talked about debris removal, and so with debris removal, I know you're going out there in June to do some of that, but there's going to be an overall removal of debris and material as this project goes forward. So this debris, when you collect it, is it going to be moved immediately off-site? Are you going to store it somewhere and then move it? Is there any plan for how to deal with that?
In terms, yeah, so I think there's 2 different types of just there's trash, which I think we are intending to take that off, and I believe we've talked with the city and DPW to kind of address that. With the other debris, so we're talking like leaves, down trees, branches, etc. Like there's grass clippings, there's a lot of that. We're certainly, at least our discussions have been focused on the trash because there just is so much of it right now. And actually, a lot of it's even buried, like years and years of trash on the site. So I think our focus is going to be that. But on the other thing, we have had conversations with the city about, starting to address that. But you're absolutely right. The contractor will be responsible for that when they get on. There are just some things we're not really going to be able to do with volunteers, especially those large pieces. So our hope is that we kind of pile that up and we try to move that offsite as we can. It's obviously not impeding, the site in any way, and people are walking in there anyways, but it's just, we're trying to get people to, I think, see the beauty of the site and what it could be. And I think a lot of that debris specifically that falls on the edges on Sheridan, on the asphalt path, cleaning that up, I think for us is starting to get people excited, about kind of what it could be. So I don't know, Jay, if there's anything further you want to say about that.
Just talk about signage.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, I'll say that as well. And we've been talking about, there'll be both wayfinding and interpretive signage. And one of the things that we've talked with Teresa and others, our stakeholders about, is that invasive species in particular, no dumping. I think there are signs that say that now, but I think starting to get people, again, interested in these things by whether it's invasives, native species, wildlife, all the reasons that we want to keep this site clean. And also, like I said before, our intent here is to make specific pathways to allow people to enjoy the space without, taking away from the value that we know it has for the wildlife and habitat and things like that. So that signage that we'll have both at the trailheads and then along the site as well will help to, I think, hopefully deter people from doing that.
Yeah, I was going down the path of the second part of what you said about down trees and dumping, and there's going to be a lot of that going on.
Yes.
And so when it comes down, if it's going to sit there for a little while, it provides shelter for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was kind of driving at is that going to move? Is there a plan for moving that out Is it going to sit there a month, 6 months, a year, or is it going to get out of there in a week?
I think the intent is try to move that sooner than later. I don't have, Mystic River Watershed Association is kind of leading that part of it, and they're not here tonight to answer specifically, but we can certainly kind of work with that. The other thing I want to mention about snags or dead trees that are on site, also some of the trees that we're actually removing, I mentioned we have log veins and some of these other stream restoration details that we want to put in. Some of these trees that we're taking down, we're intending to use in the stream restoration. And we will also attempt as much as possible to leave those snags, those dead trees that we know that animals are using on site. We have several areas that are going to be conserved and not touched within our project area, and we would love to just kind of have those areas as just natural habitat. This isn't like a formal urban park. The south side of it is, but the north side is not meant to be, very detailed like that. It's meant to flow. So we are encouraging that at least with this project.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Is there a, so just on the stream restoration portion of this, so is there a long-term type of sustainability plan for the stream? So there may be something that's going to be monitored and looked at over a 2 or 3 year period, but does it go out further than that? Have you looked at that?
Yeah, so that's part of the discussion that we'll be having. So as part of MIPA, we have to, our project will be reviewed by several state and federal agencies, several state agencies, and federal agencies separately. But so Fish and Wildlife and some of and other agencies, I'm forgetting all of them.
DEP.
Yeah, DEP, Natural Heritage. We have several different agencies that'll be reviewing the project as a whole, and so I think there are going to be comments about that. But we know that from our experience with restoration projects, with stream restoration projects in particular, they will request and ask for a monitoring plan, and they will typically dictate how long that needs to be. I will say that our experience is that they typically require at least 2 to 3 years of monitoring. Now that monitoring is usually like photo documentation. You create, a site setup within your site that, you just take every couple months photos and document that, and then you submit that to them for their review. So it is a process that we do know, especially because we're getting grant funding, that they're going to want to see this project succeed. I will say from our experience that with these types of natural restoration. So we're not, we're not hardening the bank, we're leaving it open, it's gonna be soft. It will take time for that vegetation to come in and stabilize. We have strategies to create these pools and riffles with these log veins and other rocks and things like that. That'll create that initial stability, but certainly, if we get a very large event, we'll be out there as part of the monitoring to just make sure that everything holds up. So, yeah.
Excellent. I think that was, just see, I just know what I want, one more thing. Just on the invasives, so when you take out the invasives, are you going to be using some type of herbicides or pesticides, or how are you going to deal with that? I'd just like to get your idea.
Sure. I'm gonna give a brief introduction, and then I'll let Jamie say anything else. But our invasive species management plan, we have identified as, I think, all or most of the invasives that exist on site. There are different strategies for different types of species. For example, many people are familiar with garlic mustard. That's a hand pull. That's pretty easy, low-lying fruit. Other species, such as our tree species like Norway maples or black locust, maybe you're girdling them and leaving them and letting them kind of die on site. Other species like Japanese knotweed, which we have some specifically on the upland side of the school. We have a few different stands there. That's cut and drip with chemicals, yes, because it just is so hardy. It's just nearly impossible to get rid of those without using chemicals. I don't know.
Yeah, so like Jen said, there will be a variety of methods used, and it is going to be particular to the species. And some of them you're just not going to be able to manage without using chemicals effectively. The Japanese knotweed would definitely be a good example of that. If you try to smother it, it sends shoots out 20 meters, and it'll just keep popping up. And it grows so dense that it takes over entire areas, and it grows over your head. It's bamboo, and it'll just be a monoculture at the site. So that one in particular, you need chemicals for.
No, I fully understand.
Yeah.
I fully understand that. And I appreciate you saying it right up front.
Yeah.
I think in the long term, after the invasives are out of there and you've got your plantings in, and now you're doing all of the sustainability piece on that, is there going to be a need to, what was the idea, to not use herbicides or pesticides in there?
Yes, I think the idea would be that a lot of what we're trying to do with both the grading strategies as well as the invasive management strategies is to try to address those, first of all, pre-construction, as I mentioned, during construction, and then for the few years after construction with the contractor, so having them be responsible with their maintenance contract as part of the project to get the site to a point where we're not being as aggressive as we would need to be in the initial phases. I can't say that we wouldn't ever use it because knotweed is just so pervasive in particular that, we would have to see how the treatments go, but I have seen successful sites within a couple of years with cut and drip be, fairly well maintained. So that's the hope here.
So the date on the debris cleanup is?
June 13th, and it's right after, it's like early evening. 5 o'clock?
Yes.
5 o'clock, yeah. And I believe that information too is posted on our website and in Spanish and Portuguese, if for those who need translation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just following a thought from Commissioner Joyce on previous hearings about when they do the demolition to the school, obviously there'll be disruption to rodents and things like that. Protections for that? Is it
Protections for what?
Well, if you're going to have any, to try to keep at bay any of the rodents that come up from?
Rodents, yeah. We did receive a comment from one of the public, members of the public when we were at our hearing about that, and there was concern about, and actually right now, existing rodents that are on site. And so I think the hope is that the demolition of the school will help to support and remove a lot of what we think is happening now, because, you know, obviously people are using the site, but it is generally vacant, so it does seem to be a haven. I would assume, I'm not involved with the demolition project, but I would assume that as part of the specifications of that project.
If I may. Sorry,
Sure.
I was kind of hoping.
We have a very robust rodent control plan associated with the demolition of the school.
Okay.
And that proceeds well before we go in and do anything with the utilities or the buildings.
Okay.
And that has to be approved by the Board of Health as well. So otherwise, if you don't do anything, we just recently tore down the Plimpton School. Again, we had to do rodent control well ahead of removing the building. So that is a standard tactic. So they won't just be going to everybody in the neighborhood.
Okay. Jay, is that rodent control plan available for the public? Could we
Yeah,
look at
I
that?
can get you the specifications, sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just on the, so the cut and drip for the, say the knotweed, is that cutting and then individually putting it,
Yeah.
an herbicide into?
That's right. Yeah, so it's targeted, right? You want it to get as direct to the roots as possible, so that it is exactly that. And also, you know, we try to use cut and drip strategies as much as possible, as compared to, say, foliar spray, just because of the impact to existing, you know, wildlife species, plant species, et cetera. So that's usually preferred for that. Now, there are some species that, you know, foliar spray is probably appropriate, but we haven't, again, gone to that level. And on that note, I just want to say we would, as part of our specifications, even though we have put a plan forward to you, just to give you guys a sense of what we would recommend as the designers, the contractor too would also have to come forth with an invasive species management plan, and schedule and all this information that I think would be more detailed than what we've provided to you. So.
Is that something that we're going to get before we close the hearing?
I think we've submitted it as part of.
Okay.
Our invasive species management plan
Our
is
invasives,
included.
yeah, okay.
Ours, yes.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
But the contractor part of it wouldn't be until that's in
Correct,
place?
but we provide, yeah, so like, you know, for example, if you guys provide in the order of conditions, specific things that state you can or cannot use certain things, or, you know, whatever those would be, obviously they would be in the order of conditions, and those would be attached to the specifications, and therefore the contractor would have to follow. And that's why we provided it to you, so that you guys can have some informed decisions when you make those conditions too, if there are specific things that strategies that you would prefer or not, for example. And our hope too, I think, with that in mind, is when you guys think about that, a lot of that pre-construction, which is not the GC that would do the whole project, but would be specific for invasives. We would like to do that sooner than later. That's just like a heads up. We don't have a contractor in mind right now. We haven't gone that far, but we are seeking to at least get approval for multiple methods, at least through these submittals, both NOIs.
In your experience, is that something that's done like that, you know, directed drip? Is that done with many people, or is it?
No, there's certification and license requirements for application of those chemicals. So no, typically, and depending on the acreage of the site, you'll have one or two people doing it, and over many days and multiple.
Time-consuming.
Yes, yeah. So it's not a one and done sort of situation for sure.
Worth it to limit the amount of chemicals you need to use.
Right.
But yeah, time consuming for sure.
Interesting.
The herbicides, and I'm not coming up with the second one, but there's glyphosate and there's
Or something, I'm not.
Okay.
It's try something.
One of them, the second one, not the glyphosate, seemed a little bit better for the environment. Are they both equally effective?
Correct, yes. Do you?
I am not a licensed applicator. I am familiar with both terms, and I know that those two are used regularly. I don't I'm not sure that I would be the right person to say specifically which one might be better or worse.
Okay.
I think in our experience, we just we're working on a project in Reading, which they actually just applied, I believe, your environmentally friendly version for cut and drip and not weed like in the wetland. So for areas where we're applying within the resource area, we would certainly not use something that is, I think more impactful to the environment. We would require that they use something that is obviously better for the resource areas.
Okay. A couple more. The one here, in the appendix for the Ecological Restoration Limited Project checklist, you check the box that if the project involves dredging of 100 cubic yards or more, or dredging of any amount in an outstanding resource water quality certification issued by the department pursuant to 314 CMR 9. You're not doing any dredging?
Basically what we're doing, we have some work that we have to do to move the stream, basically. And we think that the amount that we have to do to just move the stream in the areas where we're connecting it, so up at the top at Sheridan and then closer to, closer to Bamberg as it turns, those areas, I think we do have to do a little bit of work.
Okay.
And then similar with filling, in case that comes up too, we are filling a portion of the existing stream just to make it so that it can be hydrologically connected between the BVW, the existing BVW, and the stream. So and this is similar to like the impact calcs too. The numbers are funny, but it's intentional so that we can create that new restored system.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you are filling in the.
We are filling the
stream.
existing,
Yep.
yes, portions of.
What's the? How's that going to work? What's the sequence? I mean,
Yeah. I think I would refer the commission to the construction notes, which I believe are on page 2. There's a pretty detailed sequence that we incorporated in the plans that outlines how we would proceed with both the restoration part and then obviously creating the upland work. And I say upland here, but the constructed wetland and the other things, because there is going to be a sequencing that is necessary to basically redirect some of the water, make sure that the water that's in the stream now isn't impacting as we create that stream. And then when we go to bring it online, obviously, we have to make sure that those are connected. There also is like adjacent upland work for the grading, and that needs its own silt fence, and I believe we have even double erosion sediment controls on those edges because we know that could be an issue. We don't want to create, obviously, this new stream and have sediment coming into it as the contractor is working in the upland. So that sequencing strategy, and I believe that erosion sediment control plan will help address that question.
Okay. Well, that's all I had right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have one more.
Sure.
So on page 26 of the briefing, it says the project awaits confirmation from the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife regarding any time of year restrictions for work in Cummings Brook. And I was wondering if you've received any type of communication from Fish and Wildlife on this particular line item.
Yep, so we anticipate we're going to get comments from them through our MEPA process, which those comments are due on Friday.
Okay.
So we'll have that information then.
That'll be submitted to us as well?
We certainly could provide supplementary information that'll be publicly available as well, if, or we can coordinate giving that to you, but yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else on the commission? Again, this is a, a public hearing. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on the matter, remembering that conservation issues only, if you would step forward and sign in and identify yourself to our note taker.
Right now, my concern is I have standing water in my backyard because the water comes down from, I don't think it's part of the parking lot, the edges of the parking lot, the embankment where it drops into the wetland.
Excuse me.
And about the wetland, is the brook, when it's cleaned up or whatever, is it going to be in a channel, or is it going to turn the area back there into the swamp that it was 50-plus years ago? The brook has already been diverted once, so that it's between my property and the property next door. Apparently, it used to run right down the middle of my property, was diverted so that the house could be built 50 years ago. And the other third concern I have, in the future, if it is going to be open water behind several properties, it's going to be any kind of bug control, because open water breeds mosquitoes. And right now, Woburn does not have any mosquito control.
Ma'am? Ma'am? I'm sorry, just for the record, your name and your address,
I'm
please?
sorry, Mary Ken Gott, 5 Bamberg Drive.
Okay, thank you.
And it's right behind my backyard.
Thank you. I don't believe that there's going to be the stream, but there's not going to be a lot of open water.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Is it going to be open water, or is it going to be a control stream? I am not understanding the vocabulary, but you have not been very specific.
Well, can you come over here and show me where you were at so I can answer your question? So this is, okay, right, all right. So I'm just gonna quickly go back to this. I think I understand 2 of the questions, and if there was another, let me know. So the person, oh, hold on. Sorry, I'm going to need to see if I can get a pointer here. All right. The question was, I think, is there open water? And the answer is no. The stream as it exists now, which does have obviously water flowing in it, will continue to have water. We are actually not doing any work or proposing any work in this section of the property. You can kind of see here from these sort of dashed dot lines, that's the property edge, property line for the city of Woburn. The city does have an easement, a 30-foot, I believe, easement that goes through these 2 areas for the maintenance of that, of the brook there, but we're not proposing any work in this area. We are not proposing to change the bordering vegetated wetland in terms of the plant species and how that exists. And sometimes there is water in there, but it's not standing water as a pond would be. I will say, however, that the constructed wetland, which is located off of Sheridan Street up here, will have areas of ponded water that will be consistently wet. To the question of bugs and breeding, we have seen over several years of doing this, and including a project we're doing right now, the existing wildlife that is there, as well as the wildlife that comes to the site because of all the native plants and pollinators that we're putting in, really helps to bring some of that ecosystem that really can help to address the bugs. So we're talking about frogs, we're talking about birds and other things that really help to address that. And we actually don't see a lot of breeding. And one of the things, just for the public, is that, catch basins, for example, are more of a breeding ground than some of these things, because these have these surrounding ecosystems that really help to address the issues of bugs and mosquitoes specifically.
If I may, why is that area that you said would probably be a ponding area, would contain, what's causing that? Is that the runoff, catch basin runoff?
So a constructed wetland kind of acts like a natural wetland, which has areas where it's a little bit deeper, and those areas with connection to groundwater are always wet. And there's areas of upland, or what we call a shallow marsh, which is drier. And those will fluctuate, although we're designing it to have sort of what we call a permanent pool or an elevation where the water will stay. But because it's connected to the groundwater, it will fluctuate up and down depending on the groundwater, obviously depending on what Cummings Brook is doing. All those systems are connected, but it is designed to have water. And the reason that is the strategy that we're using here with the constructed wetland here and then other projects is it provides two things. One is it filters water a lot better. The soils here are really conducive also to that strategy. And two, it presents a little bit, and for this project, it presents an opportunity to create a different habitat than some of the other areas that we're working on, where we're doing bioretention, we're doing restoration, we're doing conservation. It's just another opportunity, and as part of the broader climate resilience, it's best to not put your eggs in one basket, so that diversity is really what we're aiming for here.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Is that area currently experiencing that, the ponding, or is that a new thing that?
It has areas of depression. That one photo I showed you with the ponding, it is right in that area right now.
So it currently does have some.
It does have some ponding, isolated ponding, not the kind that we're talking about, but certainly does have water already.
It's going to remain that way, maybe a little bit more.
Probably more so, but yes. Yeah.
But it has benefits. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the audience? Again, if you would sign in and state your name and address for our
Susan
note taker.
Duffy. My first question is this area conservation land or is it wetland?
I'm sorry?
Is this area conservation land or is it considered wetland?
It's
I
city.
think both.
It's not conservation land,
It's not conservation land.
no.
No, it's city property.
There are wetlands,
along it.
There is
there's
wetlands.
wetlands on the property, there's a stream on the property, but it's not conservation
Oh,
land.
it's funny because I've lived there 45 years and everyone on my street, when they moved in, was told that was conservation land and it would be never touched.
Maybe.
That was what we were told.
Yeah, and that's just the wrong term. I mean, it's jurisdictional, but it's not owned by the Conservation Commission, so.
Oh, I understand that,
Okay.
but there are certain areas where they will not touch because it's just for the animals.
Right.
But anyway, so I guess my problem is that there is a lot of wild animals there. Last summer, we had a deer and a fawn in that area. We have possums, we have birds, and I've talked about this at the last meeting, about all our nests that we have, and about the turtles that come and lay their eggs in my front yard. And I was told that the turtles would be taken care of, but there was nothing about all the hawks and all their nests, and are those the trees that are going to be cut down, and the bunnies, and and the coyotes. The coyotes had their babies there last year. And when they bring those backhoes into making all those paths, all those animals are going to be gone. And when I mentioned this last time, they were said, well, they'll come back. But will they come back? I don't think so. And that really bothers me that this is their land and now it's being taken away. And it has happened so many times in Woburn that there's open land and then they build things and then there's no place. And people complain that coyotes are in their driveway. Why? Because their land is all gone. My other problem is that I live on Sheridan Street. I live at 37 Sheridan Street. I live right across the street. With all these paths that's going down there, I can guarantee you that there's going to be cars parking along Sheridan Street. And if you've ever been on Sheridan Street, you will know that it is a quiet street, no sidewalks. Children ride their bikes, their scooters, people walk their dogs on that street, and there are going to be cars lined up on that land to do those paths. And to me, that's not right. You can't take Sheridan Street and turn it into a parking lot for the paths. I don't know if there's going to be signs that say no parking, which they have signs that say no trash, but every weekend, every day before trash day, we go and pick up the beer bottles and the nips and the Dunkin' Donuts cups because the kids throw them all there.
So in response to your question about parking, I mean, there is going to be a designated parking area down at, and I'm not exact, it's, down towards Bamberg. And I think there's 3 or 4 parking spaces
Why?
to provide parking for the people that might want to use the area.
But there's not going to be parking up at the Hurl School?
There will be parking at the Hurl School, yes.
So you're going to,
We're not.
If Mr. Corey, Jay, could you come to the mic, please?
And I've addressed this before, and I understand your concerns. You could look at it as overflow parking for Thanksgiving. You can put your family there.
I don't even think that's funny.
All right, well, you want to be angry, I'm going to tell you the reason we have to have it there. It's called ADA compliance. We have a parking lot up on Bedford Road, which has handicap spaces. We need handicap spaces down this end as well. That's all I can tell you. You can petition the handicap commission to not have them if you'd like. I'm required to have them.
Okay.
Just in response to your other question about wildlife, I mean, I think initially there's going to be some disturbance and disruption, but I think overall there's going to be actually a greater variety of wildlife habitat that's going to be created. It's going to take a while, but everything will come back. I mean, the area that I think you're most concerned about is the area that's below the school and where all the park is going to be. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be. It looks to me like it's going to be an area that's going to contain a much wider, diverse habitat. And again, I think initially, obviously, the coyote and the deer might not be there, but they'll show up. They will come back.
I don't believe that. Is there something that I can do, or someone I can talk to about this parking lot that's going to be on Sheridan Street that is now going to bring more traffic onto a small street that has no sidewalks? Is there anyone I can talk to about this? Because I believe that Sheridan Street is too small to have a parking lot on it.
Talk to your councilman.
Yeah, your alderman.
Traffic commission as well.
Traffic committee, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the issues that we don't really have jurisdiction over, so we can't help you at all there.
Okay,
But there are other city spots to check, like we mentioned.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Again, if you would state your name to the note taker and sign in.
My name's Jim Hutchinson. I live on 41 Sheridan Street. So, kind of dovetailing on what Sue just said, but more importantly, right now, if there's a heavy rain on my street, my basement, I have a sump pump, that thing's pumping. Okay, I got 5 houses that every one of us are all pumping water. All I keep hearing is that more and more water is now being dumped into this area. I wanted to know, how are you guaranteeing me that now I'm not gonna have my basement flooded? Because all I'm hearing is we're rerouting this, there's now more standing water, there's water coming in off of Bedford, there's water coming in from more off of Wynn Street. I mean, a couple of years ago, they dredged that river, whatever you want to call it, and everybody's basement started flooding again because they had to get water away from the area that they were building those new houses up on Carlson Way. So, how am I going to be, I've been there 25 years. Now all of a sudden, I've got a water problem.
All right, well, through the chair to the petitioner, will this project increase flooding? Will it help flooding, or will it just be status quo?
Yep, so as part of the project, we are working, and because we are funded by FEMA, we did have to complete a no-rise analysis as part of the project. So that is effectively a hydrologic and hydraulic model that uses HACRAS, which is FEMA's model of choice, that evaluates both the existing condition and the proposed condition. Under this particular design, we are reducing flood elevations and reducing flooding overall, and we have that as a certified condition, so signed and stamped by a professional engineer that is submitted to FEMA. Now FEMA is reviewing that documentation currently. If they find that they have any additional concerns after they've reviewed that, there will be some additional work that we'll have to do, both with surveying and with some modeling that will have to be done with nearby residents in terms of basement flooding or base flood elevations potentially, to make sure that there is no additional concerns there. However, at this time, and with the additional flood storage that we're providing, so it's not just that we're restoring the area, restoring the stream, or restoring the area and adding the water. We are actually, as my colleague mentioned, we're adding over an acre of bordering vegetated wetland, which is intended to be and act like a sponge to the site. So more water, because we have an increased capacity in that stream on site, it will be able to hold more water instead of holding it back in upland areas. Now, we have seen we have done some monitoring of the groundwater elevations, and the groundwater has been increasing, obviously, over the last year with the rain events that we're seeing. The design does accommodate for that, and we are, again, we actually did significant monitoring, not only of the groundwater, but the stream as well. We have that data available if there's interest, but that all fed into the modeling under existing conditions, which in addition to all that monitoring, we also did additional survey. So we're not even, FEMA has their own, they create their own models for these flood studies. And so we actually did an additional, I think 3 or 4 cross sections that get us more detailed information about specifically what's on site. And again, we also did analyses of culverts that are on site and up gradient and down gradient. So all this to say, we did a very detailed study, and as I said, if FEMA comes back and asks us for more information, we will do so. But so far, everything we have indicates that the flooding will be reduced, or at minimum, because it's called a no-rise analysis, that there is no impact, negative impact to the adjacent sites, either upstream or downstream. And also, I'll just say generally, as an engineer, those culverts are your limiting factors. In some cases, with really, really large events, they become the limiting factor. So it's not our site that's doing everything. You know, it's other things that are creating that as well. So,
can I follow up on? I just a quick question on the. Do you have any sense of the timeline for FEMA in response?
I wish I knew. Yes, we had. I believe it was due in early April, and we submitted that. And unfortunately, obviously, with the rain events that FEMA has been dealing with in various New England areas, they are challenged to respond quickly. We have been asking them, reaching out to ask them for their feedback. It is a condition of us getting any further money from them. So I know that the city is anxious to hear, but I don't have a timing on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A question on the monitoring wells. I'm sorry, just it's monitoring groundwater, right?
Correct.
I mean, this sounds like
Levels,
yeah.
Yeah.
This sounds like more of a groundwater issue than it is a flooding issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you have you noticed groundwater levels rising?
We're seeing, so 2 things. One is groundwater and groundwater, but specifically base flow. We were out there in the summer of 23, and we were seeing that flow high. Which comparatively to other years where we had been out there and done groundwater monitoring, where it was lower or drier, so to speak, because those things are connected, right? It is definitely higher, but again, we're seeing, I believe, and I haven't looked at it, but I think, last year was 4th, I think, wettest year, and, we're having a pretty wet winter, spring so far. So, I haven't, we haven't gone out and done monitoring this particular year, but, that's, certainly something that we would do as we continue to do the project, obviously. But the intent of all of that is to make sure that we're and I want to emphasize this, we're not just addressing flooding, we're also thinking about drought. Because if we remember 2 years prior to that, we had a statewide drought, and one of the worst. And so part of this project also addresses that, because we're thinking about how these ecosystems can thrive even under conditions that are not satisfactory. And so I know that a lot of the concerns, and that's the project is for flooding, but that's another the side thing that we're really trying to help here with this project, and getting more water to the ground.
Right.
And into the stream.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
And just as far as going back to the parking, so if it's, there's parking that's up on Bedford that's ADA compliant, and from what I've heard is all the paths have to be paved, because the paths and whatever you get through this area is ADA compliant. Why is that a requirement to put ADA parking in front of my house?
I don't have that answer, sir. We don't, that's not
So
something
can you-
it's not something that we control.
How ADA tells me that you're gonna put a parking spot right in front of my house, a picture window?
Actually, it doesn't address your home. It addressed the entrances to the park. There are two entrances. There's one on Sheridan Street, and there's one at Bedford Road. So we have to provide equal, accessible parking areas. We just put a small one down at your end so that elderly people and people that are less mobile could park.
Park there to go where? It's ADA compliant throughout. Why do they have to get at that entrance?
Can I just add?
But you have you come out here, there's ADA parking in a very specific designated area in a parking lot, right? So why do you have to have it at both entrances? You don't have it here.
It's required. And again,
So could you provide me with that information, please?
Can you, excuse me, but can maybe both of you, if speaking, because there are people out, and that would like to hear you, that's all. I'm just,
Oh, I'm
when you
sorry.
talk to each other, they
I
can't
just
hear you.
want, if it's saying just that it has to happen, I would like to see where in the bylaws of ADA compliancy or MMAB that has to be there.
Okay.
You don't see it, like I said, you don't have one designated spot in most businesses, right? Every place you go, it's in one spot.
Yeah.
But
It's just not our issue, seriously.
then I would like someone to
Okay.
give me that information. If I will take it up with this gentleman separately, then that's exactly what I will do.
All right, yep.
That's
Any-
fair.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify two things. One is that majority of the paths are permeable, 6 feet wide and permeable throughout the site, with the exception of the park area, which those are going to be concrete sidewalks to have that the most accessible for wheelchairs and strollers. And that the other is specifically the placement of the parking lots are at the edges and away from the buffers to the extent possible to allow us to have that stormwater runoff treated and away from our resource areas to the maximum extent practicable. So keeping that impervious cover as far away from those resources as possible. So that's also why they're located where they are.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Again, if you would state your name and address for our note taker and sign in on the.
My name's Pam Peterson, 3 Banner Drive.
I'm sorry, what was the address?
3 Banner Drive.
Thank you.
I just feel like we didn't talk a lot about Banner Drive and that end, and I happen to have a pool in my backyard, and I'm hearing all of these trees and a little concerned about where all those leaves are gonna end up. And also, we do have a strip of invasive vines that are right along the property line, and I'm seeing all the work being done up in the north side, but I'm not hearing anything being done on are we south? Is that what you'd call me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're on the south side.
Yeah, so we're kind of right.
Yeah, and I believe you made a comment in the public meeting, right? Yes, yes. So I think there are invasives that are located adjacent to that property line with the existing trees there. We will address that with the invasives. We will address the invasives. I think there was also a comment you asked about whether we could plant further off the property line or yes,
Yeah.
and we're looking into that.
And even just like evergreens or something would be real. That's what's.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
That's what's there now, and I believe maybe the school might have planted them a long time ago. We've
Yeah.
been there 21 years now.
Yeah.
And they're just crazy.
Arborvitae, is it arborvitae probably?
It's exactly
Yeah.
what they are, but
Yeah.
they're just,
Yep.
yeah.
All along the tree edge, there's invasives,
Yeah.
knotweed and other things.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that has to be addressed. And I know exactly what you're talking about. We have pictures of all that. I mean, what we're trying to maintain, just to clarify, we're trying to maintain the trees that are existing on site to the extent practical.
Yeah.
But if we can't, we'll plant something and we'll talk. Well, obviously,
Okay.
we acknowledge your
Okay, I feel like I've missed a lot of
Concern.
meetings too, so I hope I can.
Yeah.
Get,
You either can talk to Jay or Jay will talk to me, but we have it as a comment.
Okay.
So when we go to do final
and
plans.
would the fence be you as well too? There's
We-
like
we
an
ha-
old fence that's
Yes,
kind of along the.
we have talked about that. I don't think we've completely resolved whether we replace that or whether it goes. I think there was some concern about access from the property, from other, from people. And
Yeah.
I know that abutters are concerned about that. There is existing access all the way to Banner now with the footpath, and we are leaving that in place. We're not touching it. We're not doing any improvements to that. Because it looks like, I think either you or you in combination with your neighbor across the street, I know you mow it, and there's some stormwater concerns at the end of that, and we
Yes.
didn't, we know that that's like a long-term solution with maintenance, so just for the time being, we're not trying to impact your guys' access. So we're gonna leave it open, but we're not improving it.
Okay.
Also because I think there was a question about parking on Banner and having people park. Yeah, and I think we want people to park in the parking lot and not on the side streets.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it. Yeah, it's a beautiful project. So.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
Good evening to the chair, members of the Conservation Commission. My name's Jeffrey Dillon. I am president of City Council, also Ward 3 City Council. And I live in Sheridan Street. I started 4 years old on Sheridan Street, then my family moved the next street over to Quimby Ave. Lived there until I was 22 and married, packed up 2 boxes, moved back over to Sheridan Street, where I still am. So I know this area. As a young kid, I caught brook trout in the same stream we're talking about. You can't do that today. As a young man and a young kid, my buddies and I, that was our backyard, that whole area. We played there, we fished, we caught frogs. It was much different than it is today. And I'm 65, so that shows you how long ago that was. It is not the same parcel today that it was when I was growing up. It has become, and before I say it has become in my eyes, more of a sterile piece of land. I grant that there's still wildlife there. But wildlife can get along with the human population. I'm going to use Horn Pond as a perfect example. Again, growing up, Horn Pond was my backyard. We never saw deer. We didn't see the wildlife we see there now. It goes without reason, for some reason, that all these houses we built, and we have more population of wildlife than we did back in the 60s and 70s. It was unusual to see a deer. It was unusual to see beavers. And now you see them on a regular basis. That parcel of land in Sheridan Street over the years has just become overgrown with invasive species, which we talked about. It's become some people's dumping grounds, which offends me that that's happened over the years to the point where it's almost to the, it's disgusting. It is not a beautiful piece of property. No one can stand here tonight and say that the wildlife that is there isn't going to be disturbed. But I tell you, from the experts, from learning through this whole process, that when this is finished, not only is it going to be a benefit to the wildlife, it's going to be a benefit to the children in the community, to the adults in the community. It's a parcel of land that's dead right now. We're going to bring it back to life. We're going to be able to walk through there. We're going to be able to take our grandkids through there. We're going to be able to let them ride their bikes in a safer area than the street. Is there some kinks? Sure. But let's work together. Let's try to figure it out. Let's have the meetings. We've had the meetings. I will say it, I'm offended that some people say there hasn't been enough outreach. I've handed enough flyers out in that neighborhood, in every abutter, that I wore out 2 pairs of shoes. The outreach has been there. Your concerns, I understand. And it doesn't please me to go against the neighbors that I live with, that I've lived with forever. And I'm not going against you. I'm asking you to keep an open mind. I'm asking you to understand change isn't easy. This isn't apartments we're putting in. This isn't houses we're putting in. This is for the benefit of our future, for the kids that live in the area, for the adults that want some open space. Who walks through there now? You walk through the path and you go up to a dilapidated school that's an eyesore. I can't wait till it's gone. Let's not go back in history and say it should have been this, it should have been that. This is what we're dealt with now, what we have in front of us. Let's work together, make the best that we can out of this, and accept the federal and state money. Again, I know change is hard, but I've seen change. I've seen that property, that land, that open space go from nice, beautiful, where we used to have a heck of a time playing and fishing. And it's not that today. I don't see that. So I ask for the commission to please work with the city and do whatever you can to move this project forward. And I'll tell the neighbors any way I can help. I'm going to sit down and I'll talk to you, which each and every one of them knows I'm very easy to get a hold of, and I have sat and talked to you. Will we agree? I hope so. But all I ask is to keep an open mind and look at the benefits, not just look at the negatives. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could for just a minute, could I comment quickly, please? Sure. I'd like to comment on what you just came up here, and I'd like you to read my notes that I wrote before you walked up here. I'm just going to read from my notes. The bottom line, the punch line, the catchphrase is, I hope we can figure things out. Because I got to tell you, when you go down there and you go to the Taki School and you see what's over there, and then you look at the Hurl School today and see what's there, and then you say, we could have put in townhouses, we could have put in a factory, we could have sold cars there. Look at what could have happened to that area, and look what we're trying to do. So yes, the applicants that come here forward, we've got grants, we've got money, we're trying to do something better. Yes, there are kinks, and these are legitimate things, and we certainly don't have all the answers. Flooding's an issue. Parking's an issue. Wildlife's an issue. They're legitimate issues. It's not going to go away. But I'd rather do something for a better tomorrow than do nothing and look at the Taki School. And that's my notes, and that's what I have to say, and thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any last comments or questions?
I'd just like to make a comment, if I could. I just really want to thank the applicant. I can't see you back there.
She can't see you.
But your presentation and the application was extremely thorough and detailed, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate the visual that you put up there. I know that for some people in the audience, a lot of what was discussed is very technical. I've looked at a lot of notices of intent. This is one of the best that I've seen in a long time. I think it's a very exciting project. It's a restoration project. It is beneficial environmentally, which is what the Conservation Commission looks at. And I think that as far as the wildlife goes, when things are in balance and when you have ecological balance, everything is better. Hopefully the flood situation with additional flood storage, in theory it should be better. We're dealing with climate change, so things are getting worse out there, but this is, instead of just saying we can't do anything about it, this is an opportunity to be proactive. So I really applaud you, and I thank you very much. And I really appreciate also that you've listened to the many people who have spoken tonight. I think people had a lot of important things to say, and I appreciate everyone who spoke. So I just want to thank you for that and addressing that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Do we feel we have all the information we need?
Well, I would ask maybe the applicant again, do we have everything that we need right now? I mean, as far as to issue an approval, do we have everything we need to look at, or are any major things going to change?
Do we need to wait for tomorrow's?
Yeah, so I like I said, we don't anticipate significant comments. We did have a public meeting with several of the agencies, and we did receive some comments. To be honest, they were specifically about the impact calculations, which I think my colleague Jamie McCarthy would mention, but I think there are potential minor changes to those that we would want to submit to you, and we can do that. But other than that, I think we have given you guys as much information as we will have at this time. Besides those comments, I don't think there's going to be there's no additional design or work that's intended to be done, because now we're in the middle of permitting. But if there are questions or supplementary information that you guys would like us to provide, we're happy to do that.
The only I think Fish and Wildlife, do you have a sense of when you would hear if this?
That would be on Friday. So we would anticipate hearing from them on Friday, yeah.
So does it make sense to keep the hearing open just to be able to accept additional information? Our next meeting is...
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's up to you. The only thing that we're going to hear from them is, again, the time of year restriction, which, we would, to be honest, probably have a conversation with them about that. We've seen some projects where they severely restrict that time of year to, say, a 3-month period, for example, and acknowledging that this will be, challenging, that might be something we would respond to, for example. But that doesn't, I don't think, change the design at all. That changes the construction and or the sequencing, but that, again, would be really dependent on when we bid the documents, when the contractor comes on, and we would have those discussions such that they would meet those requirements, and those would be in addition to any requirements that you would have. So I don't know if it impacts your decision, I guess, then the answer would be yes to continue. I don't know if that really does, but
I would think that if it's potential more information to receive, we would kind of have to wait, no?
The MUP certificate, we do not anticipate seeing any substantial changes. We have a 404E permit, we have water quality certification, we don't have a 352.
Nope, Chapter 91.
Chapter 91 license. So there's a number of permits that we still have to have. If these permits show any kind of substantial change, we would have to come back to you in the future to amend the order of conditions.
Well, I'm wondering if the order of conditions, though, should reference like the MIPA cert or not. No?
I don't think it needs to. And we've done this before too. I mean, typically MIPA is the first one, and we, with the order of conditions, it is just exactly what Jay described. We would come back to you if there were substantial changes. But MIPA typically it's not a permit. It's just advisory and comments and things that we would need to incorporate as we coordinate with those agencies and or the other permits which we're currently in process and won't be submitting till the end of the month. So all this to say, like, if we continue the hearing, then I think that would, maybe put the project a little bit at risk, because the permits will continue to happen for many, many months. And just on that point, like I said, we would comment and respond to any of the agencies that provide us comment with, responses like that, where we'd say, if it's 3 months, can we, talk about, or what are the strategies that we can do to address your concerns, So I would prefer to close if we can.
As much as I enjoy seeing the Conservation Commission, I'd recommend that we close the public hearing. And again, if we have anything substantial, obviously we would have to come back just to see if it's necessary to amend number 1. And if you think it is, then we would go through the process.
So I would say before there's any kind of a motion or a vote on closing the hearing, there's the 2 notices of intent. Both are filed differently one is a limited restoration.
Correct. Yes, just for the stream restoration and the work related to that, and the rest is the work that's occurring in the upland, so that includes...
Which is also a limited project, but differently. So I think the commission should make determinations on whether or not, because I do believe it's discretional for the commission to treat it as a limited project. So I think the commission should do that before the hearing's closed. So if there's any question on that, you're still here.
Sure.
So did you want to address that at all, or did I sum it up?
Was there a specific question? It is, they are both limited projects. The restoration activity would be an ecological restoration limited project, and it does fit those specific definitions as listed. It's like stream renaturalization, floodplain connectivity, all of those specific things are cited in the regulations. So it does fit that category very well, and the impacts due to the nature park that are in resource areas are limited to like the pilings of the boardwalks, very small, and because of that it's able to be filed as a limited project, not ecological restoration, just limited project. A little confusing, but.
Okay, so I would suggest if there's discussion or questions from the commission on that come up. Otherwise,
I'm satisfied.
Motion then.
Yeah, I'm satisfied that it's eligible to be called a limited project, restoration limited project.
Okay, there's 2.
Both of them.
Right, but differently. One is a limited restoration project? Or
Yes, so the,
do I have the order of that right? Yes.
The stream restoration project would be the ecological restoration limited project.
That's the word I
and
wanted,
then
ecological, yep.
building the trails through the wetlands, that would be the just limited project.
Okay, so you're making a motion to both of those?
I'm making a motion to accept both limited
To treat them.
projects, to treat them as ecological and limited projects.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So with that said,
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we close the public hearing for the City of Woburn, DEP number 348-864.
and,
Wrong one.
Yeah,
Wrong one.
867.
867. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll withdraw that motion, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to close the public hearing for the City of Woburn, DEP number 348-867.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public hearing for the City of Woburn, notice of intent, DEP number 348-866.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you for the time. Frederick Law Olmsted would be proud of what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
They had to get that in. And at some point in time, I'm sure that this will be Article 97 land, so it will be protected in perpetuity. Thank you for the time.
And please join us on June 13th to remove some trash.
What time?
I'll be there.
I think it's 5 o'clock, but it's on the website also.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
I believe the commission has a meeting that night.
Oh, that
So-
might be true.
Might be tricky.
Maybe right before. Teresa, could you write down that motion? The first one Jerry made with the ecological.
The limited.
Ecological restoration, I can get that to you, yes.
Reporter, huh? Not bad.
Right. Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on. We have informal discussion. Cabot, and Forbes, locus is 216 New Boston Street, DP number 348-849. Changes to the plan. If everybody took a look at that, they have suggested 3 options. One, to accept the changes as, I guess, a minor change, amend the order, or file for a new notice of intent. Having looked through that, there are many, many changes, so I would recommend that we suggest they file a new notice of intent. That's up for discussion. Just so everybody knows, there's 2 parcels, and what they're looking to do is on parcel 1, do just one building. I guess we will have the applicant maybe give us some additional information. So if you guys would, again, identify yourselves for our note taker and sign in, that would be great.
Sure. Sean Sullivan with Kevin Forbes, representing the applicant. Nick from Allen Major will go through most of the changes, but just to give you guys an update on the project, we started this process with you in, I believe, June of 2022, so almost 2 years ago. At the time, we proposed the 2 buildings that you see on the plan in front of you with the parking garage. A lot has changed since then. Probably would have filed it a little differently if we had known the way everything was headed, but we filed the plans as one project, one NOI, got them approved. We're looking to file for a building permit on the first building, phase 1 of the project, imminently, hopefully in June. And, in order to file for that building permit and start construction, we're going to get a construction loan. So we thought it would be prudent to have it as a standalone project, which, would be basically amending the order of conditions ideally just to reduce the scope to that building and the improvements. Most of the improvements that we're doing and that relate to what you approved are on that parcel anyways. And Nick will show you that all we're doing really is improving upon what we already discussed, such as removing some of those crossings on the stream. So the goal was just to reduce the limit of work to that parcel and the stream, so that, building number 2 shown on the screen is not part of this order of conditions, so that when we go for a loan and all of that stuff, it stands alone. And then when we complete the project, we can close out the order of conditions. And then it would completely remove building 2 from this order of conditions.
All right, so again, for the record, Nick Delacava with Allen and Major Associates, the site civils for the project. So what I'd like to do, I'll just go through briefly what was approved and then show you what we're currently proposing. So Lot 1 has Building 1 on it. We have the surface parking around the outside, some loading areas for some trucks. We have 2 entries off of New Boston Street, one here and one here. And the other half of this development was for Building 2 with a parking garage. We had a 3rd access point off of Merrimack Street. Again, similar loading configuration in the back and surface parking out in front of the garage. The 2 lots were going to be connected through these box culvert crossings. There's one here and a second one closer to New Boston. And that is to cross over the existing intermittent stream that runs through the site up towards Boston Ave, New Boston Street. And there's actually another intermittent stream that runs along New Boston Street from left to right. They both enter into an existing 36-inch RCP pipe that discharges into the municipal system away plan to the south, to the right. This is the proposed condition that we'd like to move forward with. It's the same development for Building 1. It's the same parking, the same underground infrastructure, drainage design. Really what we've done is just eliminate Building 2, the parking garage. All the improvements associated with that development have just been removed. We got rid of the box culvert crossings along the intermittent stream. We've kept the site driveway, these 2 driveways up on New Boston Street in the same locations. The box culverts haven't changed. The limits of the proposed grading along the stream bed, discharges to the stream, none of that has changed. And it's all a net reduction as far as impacts go for work within the resource areas. And so this plan shows basically the 2. The red, obviously, is what was previously approved. And then the black and white on the left is what we're currently proposing, overlaid with what was already previously approved. You can see there's no change there. We've shifted some of the loading dock spaces just to relocate these red transformer pads. Those are relocated away from the resource area, up closer to the building, and that's really it as far as the development of Building 1. Now, we did have a sheet as part of our original plan set, and we have included it with the amended materials that we've submitted. It was the wetland resource plan, and it was sheet 109A and 109B, and that sheet had a resource area impact summary on it that outlined the length of the stream throughout the site, the stream that we were going to be removing by adding these box culverts, the stream that we would be daylighting by removing a portion of that 36-inch pipe along New Boston Street. And what we've prepared here is a table that outlines only the changes to that table. So the majority of the items on the original table remain unchanged. These are the only changes that we're proposing, and they're all least impactful to the resource areas. So the top, we're proposing, the current proposal has an 11% increase on the total length of intermittent stream through the site compared to what was approved. There's a 71% decrease in the stream linear footage removal, which is essentially these box culverts. We're removing 2 of those. We have a 20% decrease for disturbance within the 25-foot no disturb buffer, 21% decrease within the 50-foot, 22% decrease in the 100-foot, and 24% decrease in the 150-foot buffers. So again, ideally we're looking to just amend the current order because there's really no change to what was already approved. We're just eliminating a portion of the design that was already approved, if that makes sense. And I do have the full set of plans here, both what was approved and what we've recently submitted, if there are specific questions on anything. So I think I'd hand it back to the commission to offer up any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, just a quick, so the portion where Building 2 was approved already, and essentially from where the two crossings are over towards Building 2, that's going to remain the same as it is right now? Is
That's correct.
it's already there?
I'll go to this sheet.
And-
So this is
and
the,
none of- And that doesn't affect any of your calculations with flood, the storage and the drain runoff and?
yep, nope, so, because that's a great question. The two developments, they were treated as basically two separate developments, should we get to this point and only want to develop one of them. So all the utilities that service Building 1, all the drainage infrastructure that service Building 1 was all kept on what we're showing here. Everything for Building 2 was on, on the right side of that stream. And so we're just not building it. We're leaving Lot 2, 225 Merrimack Street, in its existing condition. One of the improvements we did commit to during the original approval, which I did touch on, we are eliminating about 110 linear feet of existing 36-inch culvert. We're going to open that up and daylate that stream. And we are still committed to performing that work. That way, there's still a net benefit for the whole project.
And that's on the Building 2?
It's on Lot 2 technically, but we've worked with the land surveyor. We're creating easements to perform that work. So the drainage design hasn't changed. The study points remain the same. There's no increase in rates off the site. And we're still treating the stormwater to the same level of water quality that we were before.
Okay. Thank you.
The parcel 2, does that have a building on it now?
Yes.
So that will be staying?
Yep. There's 2 existing buildings on 225 Merrimack currently.
And I think one of the reasons that this project got approved was I think the commission felt that overall it was going to improve the entire property. Now we're only improving half of the property.
Well, we're only making improvements to half of the property, and it is an improvement. It's an existing landscape yard right now, paved. We're adding all the green space that we were before on that property. So it is an improvement.
The green space on parcel 2?
No, on parcel 1.
Right. So we lose the green space that we approved for parcel 2.
We're not losing anything. We're just trying to proceed with the first phase of the project. So we're trying to start this project and have a clean start to the project. So
I understand, but the order of condition and the approval was for both parcels.
agreed. We're trying to move forward with one half of the project today.
Is the intention to do the second part? I mean, I know that's
I don't know
hard to
what's gonna
project.
happen.
I understand that.
The entire world has changed since the 2 years that we've been permitting this project, so in an ideal world, we would have gone forward with both of them. I think we have a path forward to moving forward with this one project today and improving what is probably a blighted site right now.
Okay.
Anybody have any thoughts,
Yep.
ideas,
I have a
comments?
couple questions. Looks like most of the proposed stormwater work, there's an infiltration, not an infiltration basin, but sediment 4 bays. It looks like half of it is on Lot 2, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, so
So how's that going to work?
there are easements. We've created easements, drainage easements.
I haven't seen them.
Right.
They've been recorded, I believe, right? Is that information we can?
Yeah, we can share.
I mean, but that's a big...
Today's for discussion, right? So
That's a huge change. I mean, there's, and I agree, I'm
We own
I'm
both-
opposed. This is
We
gonna-
own both parcels, we own the entire thing, so.
Yep.
You know, we have the right to do all of this, and we can pay for
course.
all the easements that we need.
And all the stormwater management systems, they're in the same location. We haven't moved them.
Right. No, I agree with that. But again, it's a big change. It's not a minor change. It's not an amendment. It's a new notice of intent. I would
So
disagree.
again, it took us 2 years to get through the first one, and I'm just saying that I understand that you guys have to do what you have to do, but
It makes it,
I don't know if this development will last another one, because, again, we haven't changed the design. We may have, I mean, there were always 2 lots, and the improvements were always shown on 2 lots. So we are separating this, so a lender will give us a loan so we can go build the building, and we have the ability to do that.
you've made it impossible for us to approve this as a minor change. It really is.
We're not asking for a minor change, we're asking for
An
an
amendment.
amendment
Yeah.
to the order of
And
conditions.
amendments are generally minor changes, which this is not. I mean, we've got easements that we didn't have before. I disagree with the, not building on Lot 2. We were getting some water quality associated with that, with the runoff there that we're not going to be getting now. So I disagree that, impacts to the buffers, the impacts stay the same pretty much to the buffer zones. There's still going to be property there. Nothing's changed, other than the fact that we're not getting any water quality treatment. Correct? I mean,
Yeah, you have none today, and you'll have none in the future, if that's the way that we want to go. So-
well, we may. I mean, if the property gets sold, which I'm anticipating that maybe that's what the whole idea is here, that if somebody wants to do something different there, then they're going to have to come up with some, water quality treatment. I just think it's there's way too many changes. It just makes it so messy, looking forward, 5, 10 years from now, that we have to go back and look at this project, and it's like, what is this? There's too many changes to allow us to just amend the order, I believe. That's just myself.
Any other comments, questions? Jim?
Yeah, so my big comment is, all right, so you separated the 2 out. Originally, was this, you call it 2 projects, but was it really 1 project? It's 1 notice of intent.
Correct. If we could have done it again, we would have done 1 notice of intent for 1 project and 1 for the other. They are interconnected with the stream in the middle, so that would have been challenging in its own right. But, we had the intention of moving forward. We didn't know which one would go, what the financial markets would be like at the time. And honestly, at the time, we probably could have built building 2 first and not building 1, but where we are today, that's not going to happen. So building 1 is what we want to move forward with.
So, but for us, it's 1 notice of intent.
Correct.
So we look at it as, it's a 1 project. You can call it 2, but it's
Yep.
really 1.
It's 1 project, and this
So-
submission would be for the 1 project, which would be building 1.
Right. So all the calculations in this are all based on the overall project. It's both parcels, right? Both pieces, all the calculations are based on that. Now you're separating it out, but you want us to still use the same calculation.
No. So we submitted the updated calculations to show that there's no increase in peak rate off the site. Everything discharges to that top right corner.
But is that as an overall? Is that an overall, looking at the parcel as an overall?
That's
Or is it
correct.
just based on?
So everything goes into the stream. The previous proposal, we had captured, the Lot 2, Building 2 side into catch basins and water quality units, and then going into the stream. Now, it's just staying as it is today and sheet flowing off the site into the catch basins in Merrimack Street and New Boston Street, and then entering the closed drainage system.
So-
Lot 1, Building 1 remains unchanged.
Okay, So minus the second building doesn't change anything? Doesn't change the flow rates, it doesn't change any of the sheeting or anything like that?
No, that was in the calculations that we had. We submitted a full drainage report.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I think there would be, the next discussion would be if we decide that it's, there should be a new notice of intent filed, that we
Right up
want to
front,
have.
that's what I had recommended. I would agree with Commissioner Lomas. I think that, as I said, to open up, I just see too many changes to do a minor change or amendment to the order. Especially if the parcel 2 gets sold. That just clouds things up. I just don't see how this commission can do it. Now, I'm only one person and the rest have their own opinion, but that's how I feel. I just think there's way too many changes and it makes things too cloudy not to go for a new file.
So if I could just comment on that. The amended order would reflect just the development for building 1. And if in the future, if the property is sold or if there's any improvements that need to be made, on lot 2, that would require coming back and filing a new notice of intent for any proposed work involved, because there is no order of conditions that reflects any work on that property anymore.
All of the improvements will be on building 1 land, with some minor easements on the edges to continue to daylight the stream and things like that. So,
But like I said,
plans will be
the
updated.
improvements that we were going to get from parcel 2 has now gone out the window.
So you're still getting all of the improvements in the resource areas, everything like that. The only thing you're not getting is like, drainage, area drain quality units. Like, that's it. It's everything else, along the stream, everything we're putting in. We removed the crossings, but we kept all of the daylighting. We kept all of the improvements we said we were gonna do. All we're removing is the paved areas and
On parcel 2, any runoff under the order of conditions that we have now, does that water quality get improved?
No, that's how it is today.
I'm sorry?
Under the current
Yeah,
order of
under-
conditions?
under the
current order
approved.
that you have with what you designed, the water that goes off of that property, has that water been improved?
On lot 2, under the
Yes.
current order, yes, it was going into catch basins that were discharged into the water quality units, the proprietary water quality
Is
units.
that now gonna happen?
Well, no, because there's no improvements going on in lot 2. There's no
So
development.
we're not gonna develop that land. So it's gonna, even regardless of what happens, right? We're not gonna develop that land. So it's gonna stay as it is until someone develops it, us, or if we sell it and someone else has to do it, and then they'll put in the water quality units. It won't change, today or in the future. You're eventually gonna get that when someone redevelops the land.
If,
Agreed.
but right now, under the order of conditions, we have water quality improvement.
Only if someone rebuilds it, but no one's rebuilding it. No one's redeveloping the land.
Well, the other question would be, if there is a new notice required, does it have to be peer reviewed again? That's just,
I would say no.
I would say no to that.
okay?
Yeah, I think if we got to
If
that
it's the
point,
same.
I think because this has not changed, I don't think we would need peer review. We could waiver that.
Okay.
And I assume then, if they went with the current plan, but just didn't build building 2, like we tell people to put something on the plan, even if you don't build it sometimes, like a deck or whatever in a house, is that out of line, out of reason? And does, I guess that restricts you guys
That's-
more?
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's not doable for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a lot of questions to Teresa and tried to talk through like what the right thing to do here was, and, I'm still navigating this myself. Like, for other projects, you guys have master plans, I don't know how those work. If you give one order of conditions for a master plan and it's open for the, they might have 10 buildings that they're building and it's open the entire time and then it doesn't get closed for 10 years or whatever it is, right? Like, could we go to the building commissioner today and pull a building permit for building number 1, you know, with the idea that we're gonna build building number 2, and we would just have an open order of conditions, right? Like, that was one thought, that we could have just started this project, right? So, I mean, could we go down that path? Like, that's the question that we have. I just don't wanna delay us starting this project.
I get that.
That's, you know, we were trying to be open and.
Yeah, we're just trying to do the right thing and make sure we have a clear path for when building 1 gets built, that we can close out the order and not have it
Yeah, that
open.
way you guys also don't have an open order of conditions. We finish phase 1 and we never start phase 2 and you're yelling at us like you never finished your project and now we can't close the order of conditions, and then we'll be back before you again trying to say, can we amend the order of conditions because we're never gonna build the second building.
So I have a question. So when did this project originally start?
We purchased the land in July of 2021 and we worked to file an order, a notice of intent, and did it about a year later.
So this notice of intent has been out there for how long?
We submitted the order, but we didn't get it approved until November or December of 2023.
Yeah.
We only got it
It's just
approved
recent.
Just recent?
6 months ago.
So, okay. So here's my opinion. I don't know when not building something, when you remove a building, I don't know how that's a minor change. Just my opinion. And so, everything may be the same, that's what you say. I don't know that. I'm going by the figures that you give us. But I think that there's more going on here that doesn't meet the requirements of a minor change. To me, it feels more like a real big design change. And I think that, again, my opinion, I think that a new notice of intent should really be prepared for the piece that you're going to build on. And the other thing is, you know, we approved this in November, and now it's May, and you're coming back to us and you're asking us to separate this, not even separate it out, but amend it. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think that, I just don't. Just my opinion, I think that, it's a new notice of intent. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
So if I could just jump in, I'm just looking at a copy of DEP's Wetland Program Policy 85-4 amended orders. It's about, well, 2.5 pages long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But just an excerpt out of it. It says the issuing authority, in this case that would be the Conservation Commission, first makes a determination whether the requested change is great enough to warrant the filing of a new notice of intent, or whether it is of a relatively minor nature and can be considered as an amendment to the original final order of conditions. In making this determination, the issuing authority should consider such factors as to whether the purpose of the project has changed, whether the scope of the project has increased, whether the project meets relevant performance standards, and whether the potential for adverse impacts to the protected statutory interests will be increased. Relatively minor changes which will result in the same or decreased impact on the interests protected by the Act are appropriate for amendments. If the determination is made that the project purpose or scope has changed substantially, or that the interests specified in the Wetlands Protection Act are not protected, then the issuing authority should not issue the amendment, but should require the filing of a new notice of intent. There's a lot more, but that's just a piece of that.
Right. I think the plain reading of that is, need to file a new notice, in my opinion.
Well, we have three options: minor change, amendment, or new filing. If somebody would like to make a motion on one of those three, we can take a vote and make our determination.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we find that the changes for 216 New Boston, 225 Merrimack are great enough to require a new notice of intent.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. John? Any abstentions? So I think the commission feels that a new file is necessary.
Yep, appreciate you guys' time. I mean, we
Okay,
don't
thank
want to
you.
go against what you guys want to do. We just wanted to, plead our case, and that's all. So we'll be back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck.
All right. We're back to the hours of when I first started. All right, under file requests, we have LCS Woburn LLC, Locust is Hill Street, Delaney at the Vale, DP number 348-826, request for 1-year extension permit.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we grant the request for a 1-year extension permit.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have Montvale Land LLC, Locust Hill Street, The Vale, DP number 348-814, and we have a request for a 3-year extension permit.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the request for the 3-year extension permit.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Business items. We have the minutes from April 11th. Believe everybody has received those. I did not catch anything on the 11th, seeing how I was late that evening. Any discussion, any corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the meeting minutes of April 11th, 2024 as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have minutes from April 25th, 2024. Again, I did not catch anything. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the meeting minutes of April 25th, 2024 as drafted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hopefully briefly, Mr. Tree Program, you have any comments?
I'm ready for the Reader's Digest version. Here are my notes. Go. 40 trees sold, good weather, everything was picked up on time. Lesson learned was to consider maybe having an earlier day prior as a deadline and revisit that date. The quality of the trees were excellent. We know the source of the information and what was good for us for next year in terms of public notification. The team had my back. And all too often, when something like this happens, you have a program, people forget to say thank you. I wanted to remember to say thank you to everyone in the commission. In addition, I sent thank you notes to the Woburn Times, to Jay Duran, to the Woburn Public Media, and to Megan McHugh. I got a special note back from Megan McHugh recognizing the thank you, which was a no thank you kind of thank you, saying that most people forget to say thank you, and I wanted to mention that. And the last two pieces of this. First, for this year, I have special mention categories. Special mention category first to Kevin Meany for his creative financial ideas. Secondly, for Teresa for getting the additional money. And thirdly, to Jerry Lonis for picking up the coffee and donuts. Last 3 points, and I'll close with this. We sold 100%, we sold 100%, and we sold 100%, and I close. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Nice
you.
job.
John, Conservation Day.
Oh, we also got the weather that Steve held on to for us, and that was good, and we got a good amount of volunteers, and we completed just about all the projects that we slated for the day. Most of it's, they all got worked on, and most of them are at least 90% done, so we got a nice bridge painted and 2 bridges better to walk on, and the Osk were cleaned up a little bit, and we've got the shorelines were, gone over with trash and debris and fishing line, and we had the DPW that did quite a bit of tree, dead branch pruning removals. And there's probably a few things that I missed, and I have yet to. I do need to reach out and do the same thing and thank these various groups that were there. We got the good group again. So I think it was a pretty successful day, and thanks to everybody, obviously.
Good job, John.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Site visits, I know right off the top, I cannot do Saturday morning, but you guys decide, and if my
This weekend's a little.
lacrosse schedule can work around that, I will.
So we have a couple, right? We got 17 Presidential and Carlson,
Right.
23 Carlson for a certificate of compliance.
I also know Wednesday of next week I won't be in town.
I'm out of town next week, all week.
All week?
Yeah.
And were you gonna go to,
We're going to schedule a site visit for one of the public hearings.
17 Presidential was one
yeah,
of
but
them.
what, were you gonna go to McDevitt? Wasn't there an issue with the tree? With
Oh, correct, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
McDevitt.
Oh, McDevitt.
Good catch, thank you.
Is that who we were? Is that who we were discussing whether or not we could do a weekday site walk with? Is that McDevitt?
No, that was
No.
Presidential.
That was presidential.
McDevitt was just a tree that they want us to look at.
I think the roots were like.
Oh, yes, yes,
um,
okay, right.
Surface roots.
Are we thinking of Saturday? I might have a tight timeline on Saturday, and
I have,
Sunday I
might,
definitely can't do
yeah, I might have a problem with that. Plus, it's Mother's Day on
Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
Dwayne, Monday is, what do you got Monday, anything?
This coming Monday, I do have lacrosse. But you guys, if the rest of you guys can go, I'll go out on my own, or
Steve?
I'm out.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah, yeah.
I can do during the week, easier than weekend.
Is Monday okay?
I can do Monday,
Yeah, Monday's good.
I look okay for
The only day
Monday.
I can't do is Wednesday.
okay.
Jimmy, you okay for Monday?
Yeah, Monday's fine. We're gonna do it in the morning?
No. 5,
I
I'm
can't do
good-
that.
I'm good
I
for
have to do it
fi-
after work.
Yeah, but
5:30?
earliest would be
5:30.
But I
5.
can go early. I mean, earlier than,
5?
yeah, I can do that. Can you do that, John?
I should be able to make 5, even if I just come right from work, so.
Okay.
And what do you
Monday
think?
at 5.
What do you think
Where
would hit
should we start?
first? Presidential and then work our way back, or? So where's McDevitt?
Well, Presidential and McDevitt are at opposite ends of
Yeah.
the universe.
I forget where McDevitt is.
It's off of Russell Street.
Oh.
If you
let's
go
do that.
Russell Street,
Let's do
Russell
that last.
Court,
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
Although, are you over by there? Where are you easiest to stop?
That would be, if I'm working a little bit late, that would be the easiest to start with for me.
All right, we'll start at McDevitt,
Want to start there?
Carlson, and then Presidential, I guess.
2 and 3, okay.
So 1,
5:30?
and what's the third one?
17 residential.
John, did you say you could do 5 maybe?
5 would be the earliest, if I get right out and go,
Yeah.
that would be good.
Okay.
I should be able to make 5 work, no problem.
So McDevitt, Carlson, President.
Oh, Carlson, I forgot yeah, that makes sense. In
Everybody
that
okay with
order.
that?
Yep,
And this is on
We're gonna do
the
5
13th,
o'clock.
correct?
yep.
Anybody else have any other items to bring up?
I do. Sorry. So I received a message on 288 Mishawam Road. In the order of conditions, it required that a SWIP be submitted, I think it was 14 days or a certain amount of time prior to any earthwork. But they have informed me that they informed me that the area of disturbance is less than an acre, and therefore a SWIP is not required. But the order says that they need to do it before work, so I'm asking the commission for guidance, whether to tell them, well, you don't need to do a SWIP, so that's waived, or if it's in the order, so they need to do it. So I'm looking for guidance from the commission.
What's the size of the property? I know it's under an acre, but
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
is that a fact that only projects?
So if it's over an acre, it triggers the SWIP with EPA. In looking at, I did look at the some of what was filed with the commission at the time, and it doesn't look like they had indicated a SWIP would be submitted in their stormwater report, but their stormwater checklist, they checked the box for submitting it. So that is probably where the confusion comes into play. That was also peer reviewed. The peer reviewer did not make any reference to a SWIP that I could see. So I think it probably didn't need to be required, but it is in the order, so.
Would that be, would that have to be amended? Or,
I think if the commission were to decide that it's not necessary for that to be submitted prior to work, probably should vote on that. I can indicate that to the applicant, and if they want it formally amended, then they can request that. But if they're looking to start, and I don't know what their time frame is, but I'm just asking the commission because I didn't really know how to respond. Our next meeting is 2 weeks away, so.
if they're not required to, I mean, the land is pretty much all disturbed now anyway. I mean, I feel like that we don't really need to require them, even though they have it in the order. I would allow them to waive it, but it's not really a waiver, it's just not.
I suppose it would be a motion to,
Omit that order?
waive the requirement to submit the SWIP. Well,
I'll
I'm not sure if that's the
make
right
the-
way to say it, but that's
What is
the
it,
gist of it.
218,
It's
288?
288 Mishawam.
So I'll make a motion that the commission waive the requirement.
Or the SWIP required in the order.
I will make a motion that at 288 Mishawam, we waive the requirement in the order of conditions for a SWIP report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye, aye, aye.
Opposed?